Hello and welcome to the Crowbar spoiler special on Prey. My name is Chris Thurston and tonight I am joined by Tom Francis.
Hello.
And John Roberts.
Hello.
Hi chaps.
Hello.
It's really warm in here. It was warm in here when we recorded the podcast that we just recorded in here. Episode 190. But now it's really warm. When will this end?
No idea what you got up to in the previous podcast.
It's sticky in here, John, and there's no getting around that. So we are going to discuss Prey, the not really sequel to Prey, by Arkane Studios, which came out a couple of weeks ago, and we've all played all the way through in sufficient depth now to do kind of what we did with Dishonored 2, and probably will do with all Arkane games, which is talk about them in deeply spoilery detail. So you will be necessarily receiving this as part of your regular Crate and Crowbar feed. However, if you do not want Prey spoiled for you in its entirety over the next X number of hours, stop this. Stop this now and go away and return when you've finished it, because we're going to talk about everything really that's in this pretty good, I would say great, I would say maybe with some flaws, but good, but great. Who knows? We'll find out. Game. I think that basically covers it, doesn't it? In terms of disclaimer. We're going to spoil Prey, guys. We're going to spoil the video game Prey. Not the 2006 one. This one. The 2017 one. What with the little gribbly mimicky man in it.
I noticed that when I take videos and screenshots of Prey, the file gets named after the executable you're running, and they're all called Prey 2. So it must be called Prey 2 for bunch of development, which would make even less sense. It really has nothing to do with it.
Because then it risks getting confused with Prey 2. A completely different game that never came out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, weirdness aside, I guess, so in a bunch of different ways, Prey is a System Shock sequel.
Yeah,
that never happened. And more specifically even than that, it's a System Shock sequel that probably should have been called Psycho Shock. Can we, based on the prevalence of that term in the game.
That is a skill in the game, and as soon as you see it, you kind of think, that seems like a name that would work for this.
But even so, it's called Prey. And I think the best way to approach talking through it is to go in roughly chronological, which is kind of what Tom, you and I did for Dishonored 2. It's less easy in this case because it's not open world game, but the open structure of the game allows you to tackle it in different ways. But
we can kind of just do it in the order that we did it, and if whenever someone gets to a bit first, then they got to that bit first.
Okay.
Because it would be good to start with the intro, because although I've actually talked a lot about Prey in terms of mechanics and how much I like it, various criticisms of it on the podcast, but in contrast to that, you kind of can't say anything about even the first minute without spoiling things in terms of what actually happens. And I really like the intro. It was one of the very few sort of narrative intros to a game where I was completely on board, and kind of the reveal worked really well for me. Immersive sims have a history of betraying you. Usually they wait a lot longer than this one does. And so it's nice to get that betrayal over right up at the start.
So, I mean, given that this is a spoiler cast, we can get straight into it. So, Prey opens with the kind of bait and switch games don't normally do. I mean, games do this wasn't really the place you thought, it was all a simulation thing. Yeah. That trick has been done. And the thing that's often frustrating about it is, as soon as you establish that there are people in the game who can simulate anything to any degree of fidelity, then what does anything mean? Which is something that Prey is going to deal with, and we'll get to that. The nice thing about Prey's intro is it shows you the behind the scenes workings of the entire, all of the technology used to dupe you into thinking that you're in an apartment in San Francisco is there in the world and is consistent with other technology in the world. Yeah. The fact that this entire thing is also an advanced simulation at a higher level, a double Matrix, if you will, from the Matrix 2, Matrix Reloaded, is maybe a question we're going to get to when we get to that point. But it's an interesting point of contrast that the game has both in it. It has the kind of the practical special effects Matrix and the CGI bullshit Matrix.
Did you guys break the fish tank or the balcony door? Once you get out, so...
Oh, when he tells you to escape.
You go through your routine once, and then an alien breaks out in the tests, and then you wake up again in your apartment. And to be honest, my heart kind of sunk at that point, because I was like, I'd already seen some stuff in the trailer about like living. The trailer hints at living the same day again and again. Like I keep having this dream thing is repeated. And I've been so burned by everyone who does this makes you do it 3 times. And the second time just gives you nothing. It's just the same fucking thing again. And particularly, I actually got really pissed off with, Edith Finch for this, where an action had to be repeated in a really arduous way. And I have no tolerance for repetition at all. And I was like, oh, do I really have to do that fucking ride again to the office? But then no, just as soon as you go out your door, shit has got fucked up. Yeah. And, now, actually, I didn't remember how I got out of that. I remember walking around, and then I remember getting into the guts of the place and looking around. And then I watched a YouTube video of, it was actually Christopher Odd, and once he gets the wrench, he goes back into his apartment and then thinks, oh, I wonder if I can break this window now. And he does break the window, and it's got a special, like, slow-mo moment for that, where the whole glass shatters, and instead of being a balcony looking out over San Francisco, it's a bunch of lab equipment that's been monitoring him all the time. And that moment works really well, because it fills your whole screen. And yeah, I guess I broke the fish tank. I don't remember doing it, but I'm pretty sure I just broke the fish tank. And
yeah, the first time you went out through the window, and like you said, it's got a special animation for it, so it looks as good as possible. And that's because I hadn't learned to distrust fish tanks yet. And I think every time after that you see a fish tank or a waterfall or something, you should be immediately suspicious of it.
That's true, actually. We get to the Arboretum later, but the Arboretum has a suspicious waterfall. Yeah. Basically, if you see somewhere a fish might live, it's a lie.
The fish is a lie.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really effective intro as well, particularly because I think it doesn't sort of overplay its hand with what's going on. It's relatively clear to you that something weird is going on, and the nature of that tutorial and their disappointment when you just hide behind a chair rather than mimicking the chair as you're expected to do is kind of nicely handled, because I think even if you are aware of the kinds of powers you'll get in the game from marketing materials and stuff, that almost works in that context, because you kind of have a sort of half sense of what they want you to do, but you can't do it.
Yeah, I actually, when I was doing that, was not thinking at all about powers. I was literally thinking, oh, this is the tutorial teaching me to crouch and shit. And the context, I didn't think much about the narrative context of it at all. And even like a while later, I can't remember if I just noticed this achievement or someone told me about the achievement, but there's an achievement for going back and doing all those tests the way they expected you to do them.
Yeah, I got that organically, actually, just by seeing if it would work. And,
so it wasn't until I saw that existed that I went back and thought about those tests and thought, oh, what powers are they testing? And obviously the one where they want you to hide is a mimic one, because there's there's an object in the room for you to mimic, and they ask you to hide. The one with a switch that's across the room, obviously it's remote manipulation. And then the one with the boxes is like kinetic blast. You're supposed to knock them out with that. And so they all have a solution which is basically instantaneous. Like if you had the right power, you could just do this instantaneously, and that's why they ask you to do it as fast as possible. And I love how it's already funny, that intro, like when you go through it the first time and like you hide behind the chair and like, is she hiding behind the chair? And you're like, what else was I supposed to do? And it's even funnier when you know that they're expecting you to mimic it. like show us your alien powers, and she just like crouches behind the chair. Can you see me?
The other side of that is that it gains new meaning when you know the actual ending of the game and who you actually are in Prey. And, you know, I'm not sure exactly what the parameters are of that simulation that you're being run in, but the fact is the first thing you do as a Typhon organism living the memories of a human woman exposed to Typhon DNA is a test that finds out how Typhon you are. And the fact that you behave completely as a human in that moment is sort of significant for the broader test you're doing, which is, can a Typhon be convinced that it's human? If that makes sense. Sorry to skip all the way to the end, but like that first test actually has huge ramifications, I think, because you wonder if like you're not allowed to. There are other things in the game where they fail you for that bigger test. And that almost feels like if you'd used Mimic there, they'd probably go like, no, this one's too Typhon. Like, start the simulation over again.
So it's a whole load of things stacked on top of each other. Like, A, you're secretly a phantom in this simulation and living a human's memories. B, this human's memories have been reset to the moment before they installed a bunch of alien neuromods, because every time you uninstall a neuromod, it resets your memory to then. But then it's kind of interesting to like look around that apartment. I was trying to figure out like they've obviously tried to recreate what your memory is of that moment. And there's like a note lying around explaining how to install your first neuromod, but there is no neuromod in your apartment, obviously. You don't get this till later. And so that feels kind of out of whack. Like if my last memories of if the state of my apartment at that time had an instruction about how to install a neuromod in it, either the neuromod would still be there or I would have already installed it. So my memory of that apartment should have had the neuromod in it, I feel like. Or maybe I've taken that home from work or something. But obviously it makes sense that it isn't in there because they, the reason those guys expect you to pass those tests with alien powers is you hear one reference like, oh, I installed everything that someone brought down. So they think they've installed neuromods in you. And I think, is it January who stops that from happening? Like she in some way intervened. For anyone who doesn't know, by the way, I was playing as a female Morgan, and Morgan's gender determines January's gender as well.
Yeah,
so.
I saw that actually when I watched, after I finished it, I went back and watched some speedruns because I was curious about how people did it, and it's really weird hearing male January.
Yeah.
Did you also play
January's voice and also the contents of your bathroom, mostly.
And December's voice as well, presumably.
Yeah, kind of. December's voice is very artificial.
Yeah, I can. A note in my quest log said, "Oh, I met another drone who also sounds just like me." I'm like, no, he fucking didn't. It was no relation at all. I'm guessing. So, did you play as male or female?
I've done both now.
All right. Because in playing as a female, Morgan, I had like my handbag and a pair of pretty feminine-looking shoes. I'm guessing that's different.
Yeah, the main difference is he has shaving foam and a rack full of ties instead. But
I actually found it hard to remember that I was playing a woman because I guess I'd just seen enough of the sort of marketing material, and that that would also go for like Mass Effect. But in Mass Effect, you're seeing your character all the time, so you kind of it's really easy to ingrain. And I would just almost every time I would either see myself with January. I just didn't. The fact that she was my voice didn't sort of, I knew it, but it wasn't internalized at all. And so every time I saw myself or someone referred to me, with like female pronouns, I had to kind of realign. Oh yeah, I am a woman.
It's funny because like Morgan, I was trying to refer to the Morgan that you are, and I almost referred to this as Morgan you. Is kind of a mute protagonist, but is surrounded by other versions of themselves who are not. So whenever you see yourself in a video or anything, that's kind of established. It's not really you because it's, well, it's a different you. I'll put it that way.
It's actually the first time I've been genuinely disappointed that there's no real-time reflection in the game. There's been a few times where I actually just wanted to go to a mirror and see what I looked like, just to check if I am this person that everyone tells me I am.
It's funny that some of the first videos, pieces of art they put out for the game were of male Morgan, the one that at the time we thought looked like Graham, like looking into a mirror, like seeing the kind of typhon in his eyes. And you literally cannot do that in the game, Prey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's set up so that it's not actually Arkane's fault. It's not their engine, it's Alex's engine in the future. You can't support real-time reflection.
Even though they have looking glass technology.
But not mirrors. Yeah, there's a complex irony there. So after the simulation, like that beginning is relatively... And actually, it's not linear. Like I was going to say, like, it's, is there much to say about until you get to your office and discover the first half of the video? But actually... quite a lot happens in that time. So just go around and explain what happens in that time.
I had probably an unusual experience with this because I played the demo a lot, and the demo on PlayStation was Neuromod Division and then also the lobby. And there are various, I think just the lobby, like you can't go any of the other doors out of the lobby that's like a loading screen. But they artificially prevented you from going back to Neuromod Division. And Neuromod Division has loads of branches off it, and I knew about those, and I'd been through both those areas really thoroughly, and I knew what all the options were. I also knew where a lot of Neuromods were in the lobby, and the main thing I was keen to do was to go back to Neuromod Division and explore all that. So I went to the lobby and just kind of speed ran to where I knew all the Neuromods were, like smashed the glass in the museum, got that one, went up to my office, got a bunch there, went into, I think it's the sales division, there's like a bunch that are stashed in there, and then ran straight back to Neuromod division and installed the things I needed to get into those other places. I think, can't remember what I actually needed to get into those places. I guess like hacking. I think hacking gets you through like 2 of those doors or something. And so my first like 5 hours of the game were back in like all the areas you can get to from there, like fabrication and all the volunteer testing stuff.
Right, because I didn't encounter those till right to the end of the game, actually.
Right.
Like, and I guess, so not to skip ahead too much, but like one of the discussions we've been having a lot as we talked about the game is the fact that you didn't encounter the thing where after you've manufactured a certain number of neuromods, it cuts you off.
Yeah.
Because you went to neuromod fabrication straight away and probably disabled it without realizing that's what you were doing. Like,
yeah, the way I encountered it was that like that it was actually the first place I went in Neuromod division was once I returned to it was the fabrication place, and I knew I really enjoyed it because I had this sense of like I'm not supposed to be here at all. This is clearly way beyond me. All I'd encountered was mimics, and I think you've seen one phantom by that point, but I hadn't fought any. And in that area there's a technopath. And all it says is they don't have like psychoscope or anything at that point, so it's just question marks, and it's this giant fucking jellyfish thing. And I just kind of I heard it, and I saw like a glimpse of it. I was up in like a balcony area, or sort of like a high office with an overlooking window in that area, and I could see it moving around down there. And obviously I was terrified, like hiding from it. And there was a bunch of turrets near me, like boxed up, and I think I just like moved one of those or something, and then the technopath strayed close enough to me that they all turned to the technopath side and like shot up into the air and just went to the technopath. I didn't actually. I think it might have shot up me briefly, but it wasn't a real threat. It was just like he's got them now. And then I'm still back up in the office and like, okay, all the turrets are gone now. And I ended up like throwing. I think at that point I already had like an EMP charge, so I was throwing those down. I managed to break all his turrets and leave him exposed, but still just the thing itself was terrifying to me. And ended up like stalking it. I was desperately trying to like sneak around and try and explore this area without directly engaging this thing. And I don't think I even had the shotgun at this point. I think I literally just had the pistol and the wrench. And I ended up like, as I was sneaking through that area, picking up fuel barrels and trying to bring them all to one place in like a doorway. And my plan was to like lure it through and then shoot the fuel barrels as it went over them. And I had literally one bullet in my gun, no other ammo, no other projectile weapons, nothing that could set off a fuel barrel. And it got so hard to lure him into that, or I was just waiting for him to kind of patrol near it because I thought I'd seen him near that area. And eventually I had to like reposition all my fuel barrels because I realized he was never going to come near it. And then he did get to me, and I did shoot the fuel barrels, but I think I did it too early, or it wasn't. He wasn't close enough, and so I think it did like some damage, but it was clear I was not going to kill this thing, and that was my one shot. And all the fuel barrels in the place I think I used up. But already I could see there was like a that's actually I think why I went into strength in a big way, because in that area there's a door that leads to a cache of exotic material, and there's a computer in there that as far as I was concerned, it had an error message on it that I needed to cancel to get at the computer to read the emails and stuff. And the thing I cancelled was the revoking Neuromod license, which I guess preemptively completed that quest, before I ever got to it. And I also got the Neuromod fabrication plan there. And so from then on, I was using exotic material to fabricate it. I didn't have, I think I couldn't get into someone's office up there that I did get into when I returned to it later. And that's where you can unlock the exotic material cache, but I saw that the door was unpowered, and it tells you like, force open with strength 3 or leverage 3. And at that moment I was like, I need leverage 3. I'd had experiences in the demo that led me to believe like, you don't really need leverage 3 because you can kind of use leverage 1 to like throw stuff around, and there's other ways around those obstacles. But then when I saw there's like this kind of hard gating, like if you're that strong, doesn't matter if the door's off, you're just going to rip it open. That was way more interesting to me, so I went for that.
How about you, John? How did that beginning after Neuromod, the strictly relatively linear bit, which is like, are you going to hack this door, etc.? I
think I wandered around and made the most of the lobby area because I hadn't played the demo, and so just delved into all the nooks and crannies in there. Went through the vents down into security and had fun finding the shotgun for the first time. Eventually made my way up to the trauma center, and because I'd heard Tom talking about it before, was deathly terrified of the phantom that's wandering around in there.
Yeah.
Because I think you played the demo and said, "Oh, it's you can't kill it, and it one shots you," and so an incredibly tense, like sneaking around in there.
Was it just one in there for you?
There's 2 in there, normally, I think.
I think it's generally one fire type.
There's one fire phantom and one regular phantom in there. I
Yeah,
think.
that's what I was
Yeah. But yeah, it's a really hard encounter to go out that early on, and you don't get a lot for snooping around in there. You find the guy who's been possessed and the code he's cut in the padded cell, which I tried in every single lock from then on because I didn't put 2 and 2 together. It's a lock like 10 meters away. But I tried it in every single combination lock.
I think you can't use it yet, can you? Because it's someone's safe and you can't use the
actually
office
need a key
itself for a
card
while. There's a little bit of what seemed to me like almost a gotcha in there, where there's a drone that is loudly complaining about urgent send repairs or please send a qualified engineer, and it's a medbot that's been damaged. And at that point in the game, well, I guess it depends when you get to it, but first time I got to that, I still hadn't really decided how to spend my neuromods, and I was like, oh, if I got repair, I could repair this medbot. But there's also a medbot dispenser, like on the other side of the room, that you can just press a button on and get a free medbot from.
Yeah, actually that encounter was like my first, so like my story of Prey as a whole is like escalating power, and we'll definitely get there when we talk about like completion times, I think, for one thing. But like at the beginning I was taking things very, very slowly, and actually I did the trauma center bits before I'd done anything else, and before I'd even had a gun. I had the glue gun and I had the wrench, and it was terrifying, but like I was like, oh, this is what the game is. The game is how do you survive this with nothing? And it took me a while to figure out that you can pick up the turrets. So as soon as I figured out to pick up the turrets, I made like a turret trap outside the front door of the trauma center, and then did the thing presumably everyone tries once, which is I'm going to find all of the explosive canisters I can find and put them in a pile in front of the door, and then went and like baited the phantoms into chasing me, and the turrets took them out, and it was super gratifying, like realizing that they can knock over the turrets and that's bad, and like running in to pick them back up again and, you know, pointing them in the right direction. I very, like, early on in the game, like, I put all of my neuromods into hacking and repair, like, because I figured, oh, these are the 2 things. Like, actually, I never put a point in strength for the entire game. Everything, like, early on, everything was hacking and repair, because I thought, well, part of it was a roleplay decision. Like, I kind of wanted to play Morgan like an engineer lost in this big kind of horror space station puzzle that could be solved through engineering and trickery rather than combat or punching or stealth or anything like that. But also partly is because I figured like this is going to get me into the most interesting places if I can repair stuff. And actually later in the game, it definitely helps a lot having like max engineering and max hacking. And that was super gratifying. And like, I also had the idea early on that I was going to try and like save everybody I could. And so I spent a while trying to figure out, because when you find that guy in his cell, his head blows up, because that's what happens when possessed or like mind-controlled humans encounter you. And something I'm still curious to know is if it is possible to kill the telepath that is controlling him. Because my thought was, there's a telepath on the outside of the station. And this is one of the mad things Prey would totally do, but I wouldn't put it past them to have that telepath be the one that's, you know, through the walls or whatever, mind controlling that specific guy. I don't know if that's accurate.
A volunteer subject, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, and there's a bit of an email chain about why he's there and how he got there. So it might be possible to backtrack exactly which one did it.
Is he 13?
Yes, I think.
I feel like I read a lot about Subject 13.
Yeah, it might simply be that. But yeah, it's just because he behaves exactly like the ones where you can save them if you can take out the telepath.
Yeah, I when I came across him and I had the keycard to open it, and I thought, well, I'm not sure I want to do that. And so I saved and tried it and opened the door, and obviously like he goes aggressive, so I immediately hit him with a wrench. He just just ragdolled, and I thought I'd knocked him out, so I was like, oh, okay, that was easy. And I tried to like search his body, then he just got back up again, and then his head exploded. Jesus fucking Christ!
It's a bait and switch. I'm not dead, but I'm now.
Yeah. And so I went back to my save and did what my instinct was to do, which is to leave him well alone.
Yeah. I didn't get the, I I explored quite a lot before I went to my office for the first time, which meant that I'd found the shotgun and upgraded it before I found the pre-order bonus shotgun that it gives you, which I just put back in the locker, basically. I don't want this.
Oh, this is my mum's shotgun. I can't use this.
Yeah, it's a weird.
Does the pre-order one do extra damage or anything?
It's just got a pretty skin. It's got like a Art Deco kind of thing. And then, so then actually after that, I think I followed so lobby leads you to hardware labs. Because I tried desperately to get into psychotronics. I'll tell you one thing that did frustrate me early on was that there are those doors that are like regular doors, but they're kind of broken.
Oh, yeah.
And they can be destroyed by recycler charges.
Oh, really?
In some cases, but it's a bit weirdly inconsistent.
Yeah,
There's the ones with like the sort of slats. That
The slats are missing.
They're like the mimic gate. If you want to pass through these, you need the mimic power.
Yeah. I found that sometimes I could get through them with recycle charges, I think, but I spent a lot of time with the explosive canisters that I didn't use trying to blow those open. And I think that's not to just focus on things that didn't quite work, but that was one of the things where like what you were communicating to me with, you need to be small to get through this, was really effective with like the force field guard posts with the little letter slot in them. Because that looks indestructible, whereas a door that's already like half off its hinges with huge holes in it feels like something I should be able to blow up.
That's the crack in a brick wall. It's like, put bomb here to get through.
Yeah. There's, I'm kind of interested because those are used in, there are some cases where like, once I had the mimic power, I would turn myself into like a little canister of oil or something and slide under them. I also, just as an aside, I love when you mimic, like an object and you're moving a small enough distance or gently enough that it doesn't actually tumble, so you just kind of like scrape across the floor and just turn back at yourself. And I did that in a few cases where once I was on the other side of those, the only way back out was to just do the same thing in reverse. And I'm intrigued to know, like, presumably it's possible to get yourself totally stuck there. If it was your last side point that you used to slip under there, then...
presumably, yeah.
Because I don't... be interested to hear what you guys... what your experience was with this, but, like, I had loot glut for most of the game, and especially sci-hypos, I just had a huge stockpile of those. Even once it got harder for me towards the end and I was using loads of psi-powers, I still never came close to running out of those. But I've heard from other people, like, just saying that this is a game where you're desperately out of ammo and out of everything all the time.
So I was, obviously this is skipping ahead, by the end of the game I was desperately out of ammo all the time, but I had a huge glut of psi-hypos. And as soon as I finally took off the neuromod limitations that I struggled with for most of the game, and suddenly had a big surplus of them, I found that, like, it was interesting because all of the, like, the really useful, this will get you through the game powers, and I appreciate we're skipping ahead a bit, are on the Typhon branch. And early in the game, particularly when it establishes the stakes for going into the Typhon branch, I wasn't sure how far I would go. But then as soon as I ran out of ammo for everything else, it's like, yes, setting things on fire with my mind is really handy. And so I suddenly had all, like, and then when you realize that they're on separate cooldowns, so your potential, like, damage output from pure mind bullets is a lot higher if you have Psycho Shock and the fire one and the electric one.
It was kind of a revelation when I looked at my 85 sci-hypo things and just tried dragging them across the recycler and realised they're basically exactly what you need to manufacture neuromods.
Oh shit, they're exotic material?
Yes, they are metal and synthetics and exotic material.
How much exotic do they give you?
A lot. Like, it's about half an exotic per thing. So,
that's a lot.
I just chewed through all my supply and was desperately in need of them after that.
That's kind of awesome, actually. Like, you kind of take this precious stockpile and realize, wait, I could just mince this all up and then upgrade myself with it. The neuromod thing was kind of, it had this, like, slightly illicit thrill to it, like manufacturing those. It really felt like printing money. It felt like counterfeiting. It was like,
printing XP.
I shouldn't really have this, but I can. I can just melt all this shit down and have a lot of this.
Yeah. So let's move on to hardware labs, because that's the section. I mean, because I guess it's after, I don't think it's probably until Arboretum that the game really opens up in a lot of different directions.
I felt like, I mean, because I was going back and forth between Neuromod and Lobby a lot. Like, it was quite open for me from then.
That's true. I guess because I didn't go back to Neuromod until right at the end of the game. Because I spent a lot of the time, because I think early on you get like a side quest that says something important in Psychotronics. I know what it is. There's a body that's supposed to be in the trauma center. And eventually you do find it in Psychotronics. And at the time I had no idea that Psychotronics was going to be a key location where it gives you the Typhon powers and the Psychoscope. So I just tried to get in there. Like, I was ignoring the hardware lab stuff. Because the reason you're sent to hardware labs is a little bit woollier, I think. If I remember right?
Let's reset the looking glass thing so you can finish talking to yourself.
Yeah. Whereas I was like, psychotronics, this sounds really important. And because I think this is one of the only, so much praise environment design and what it communicates about what you can and can't do is beautiful. But actually, to go back to those doors that look super breakable, that really threw me, because there are two ways into the psychotronics, or into the corridor that leads to psychotronics. One is an extremely locked looking door in front of like a atrium that it communicates very effectively. Like, it's one of those keypads that doesn't show you the hacking symbol. It's full on. You need a keycard. You have to have a keycard to come through here. But on the other side of it is a little room that has a recycler and a crafting station, I think, in it, that is you're only kept out of by one of those doors that you need Mimic to get through, or recycler charges, which I think you also don't get until psychotronics. So it's like that for me, like that actually threw me. Like, I burnt a lot of resources trying to get through that before I finally was like, I'm not supposed to do this, and went back to hardware labs to kind of get back on the train.
That front door to psychotronics is quite fun because it's the most obvious use of the Huntress bowcaster thing. There's a pre-smashed window, and on the other side is a computer screen which literally says release door and a big button on it.
I actually just reached through and used that. You can just touch it. Like, it doesn't really look like you could be able to, but I didn't have the bowcaster at that point, so it was just like, oh, can I just touch that computer?
Is that doesn't let you sequence break it? You can't go to psychotronics.
That doesn't get you into psychotronics, gets you to the door to psychotronics, basically. Right. So the locked door is...
Yeah, okay. I was just thinking, like, if I had spent all my resources trying to get to psychotronics and missed that... Yeah, I think,
actually, just quick, did I tell the story in the podcast? I think I told you, Chris, but I can't remember whether we were recording at the time, about the,
we record all of our conversations, Tom.
The, museum in the lobby and the turret.
Yeah, I think you did tell that story on the podcast. I think. Oh, no, I don't know.
I'll tell it anyway. Who cares? It's a short story. This was very early in, like my first time playing, and I was carrying a turret with me everywhere and putting it down before I did anything. And there's this little museum that has a kind of like the history of Talos 1 and how it came about. And it's a really nice little, interactive exhibit where as you walk down the hall, the different eras of time, as key points in the timeline light up, and, a voice tells you about that period of the history. And I put my turret down kind of at one end of this, and it turned out to be the final stage of it. And it was like, 2063, Talos 1 is launched. Because I was standing there, and I put the turret down there, and when I walked away, it just kept saying, 2063, Talos 1 is launched, because the turret was still there, and it was sensing that the turret was in the museum, and I was desperately trying to get it to, like, I just wanted to, like, hear the whole thing in sequence, and ended up picking up my turret and moving it, and then fucking mimics attacked, and the whole thing went completely to shit, and, I think the turret ended up shooting, I don't know what actually damaged it, but like a fuel line in the museum got burst, and so there's a jet of flame coming out into it now, and like my turret's broken, and I'm still just trying to like get back to the exhibit.
I really liked that exhibit. I think bizarrely, it was the first time I realised what the aesthetic was. That blend of Art Deco and kind of 70s, 80s technology. Just because I was looking around at everything, and I think I looked at the speaker, and it's like, everything in here looks like my dad's old audio-visual equipment. It
is like some Bang & Olufsen hi-fi from 1984 or something.
You've got these stark golden lines across everything. It's like, oh, they've got style!
Yeah, I really liked, like, it was nice seeing the kind of setting come alive and figuring out, like, I mean, there's so many stories within stories within stories in Prey, but, like, the backstory of this is what would have happened if Kennedy hadn't died is a nice hook. Like, this is the consequences of an active space race. I think it does lay it on a little bit thick sometimes, but the kind of like, the space race was going so well and everyone loved space so much there was no point going to Vietnam. Then there's sort of, but nonetheless, like, that was a nice kind of, moment of realizing the way it justifies its art style, I guess. Like, the way it kind of explains how that came to be and that set of fashions came to be feels relatively organic. Compared to something like Bioshock, which feels very showy with a similar aesthetic. I don't know if that makes 100% sense. Like, Bioshock feels more like a performance piece, whereas Prey felt a bit more lived in and natural to me. Like, it came from history.
I really like how Prey is well, like the best art, the best environment art in particular shows the layers of history that something's been built on, and that's like the founding principle of the station itself in Prey, where you start with that initial containment, the cage, the Kletka, I think it is, and then the station slowly built up around that, and then you finally get the gaudy Art Deco wrapper over the top of it, and it's really fun to see that maintained through all the different areas.
So, is there much to say about hardware labs apart from encountering phantoms and actually probably dealing with phantoms for the first time?
Yeah, I think I dealt with them a little bit in lobby, but I really liked the sort of opening, well, just like hardware labs in general, but there's that kind of atrium area before you get into the actual like testing area, where there's a phantom stomping around, and there's a vent somewhere where you can crawl in and turn the power on or off. And that was really cool, because I was going for strength. I think this must have been quite a way into my playthrough. I think I didn't go to hardware labs for a long time. And I think I had leverage 3, and so I liked turning power off and then using leverage 3 to like force my way through doors instead. And sneaking around. I think it's a fire phantom in there. And obviously when the lights are out, that looks great. And yeah, I can't remember the hardware labs. The sort of testing area itself. I remember reading a lot about the Nerf gun there, and like getting basically the Nerf gun lore, like how they developed that and all the different iterations and the fabrication plans and all that stuff. There's a crazy amount of depth in the Nerf gun thread.
You mean the Huntress Bolt Caster?
Yeah. Not the, what were the rejected names for it? Like the Pain something.
Yeah. The Redeemer. Yeah, I like the obviously the wave laser labs bit is a classic bit of introducing a laser gun in a shooter design, with the press this button to fire laser at Phantom, who happens to be in this room looking the wrong way.
Yeah, I think I first encountered that area from space. Like,
oh right, yeah.
I was on the outside of the ship, and yeah, just a sign that says beams and waves. I'm like, fuck yes, let me in there now.
Yeah, because I
have to repair the hull breach from the outside
not
before you
to get to be.
Okay.
Oh yes, you do to get to beams and waves. Yeah, I found it and realised, oh, that's what I need to do when I go outside. And then when I went outside, I did it.
This room has the most exciting name. I must get in.
Yeah. That first outside bit is a real moment because it kind of shows you that, like, oh, this entire space station is just right here. Like, this is all of the places this game will take place are here.
I can't remember if I was sent out there or if I just went out there of my own accord. Because in Hardware Labs, there's an airlock, right?
You have to go outside as part of the main thread.
Yeah.
You have to get the key to the Looking Glass place that you're trying to get to.
Right.
And the doctor who ran it is dead outside, basically. So you have to go out. So you do have to do that EVA bit, but it's a short EVA if you just do the critical path thing.
Right.
But you have the freedom to just fuck off and do laps around the station.
Yeah, I really like, I guess I said this on the non-spoilery podcast when we talked about Prey, but I love the having that complete list of crew, and then when you go outside, being able to fly around the whole ship and just see where everything is, like that sense of wholeness and completeness, and just like everything about Talos 1 is here, and you can go to all of it, and it's all consistent and it all makes sense, and I really can't remember having that in any other game, certainly not of this kind.
Well, the crew list, I just wanted to say I had the most perfect introduction to that system. I think there's a very early quest which dictates or asks you to go and find someone. And so I'll use the crew list and found her entry, and it said so-and-so in the lobby, no life signs detected. I said, fine, clicked on it. And then the cursor that shows her exact location is walking around.
Oh my god.
And it's like, well, shit. There's something spooky going on here.
And it was a phantom.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I got really into all my favorite moments of Prey really were sort of deciding to do my own thing, and not my own thing as in completely making something up, but some lead or some mention of a side quest, a bit like you trying to get into psychotronics. For me, it was when I went to the trauma center, I was looking for Bellamy, and I It was because I missed something. I think I looked at the computer, but I didn't read all the emails, and one of the emails is what tells you, oh, Bellamy's not here, or there's an email saying, don't take Bellamy to
Trauma Center, take him
place.
to Psychotronics, I think.
Yeah, and I didn't read that email, but because I'd been there in the demo before, I remembered that that you don't find him anywhere in the Trauma Center, but there was just one room in the Trauma Center I can't get into, the main guy's office. One of the cool things about the consistency and how sort of, how close this place is to a sort of functioning structure is that this office is not just generic office. It's got a name on it. It belongs to someone. And it's someone who's on the crew. So I can go to a crew computer and look up that guy's name and find out where he is. And I clicked on it and then just like looked around like, where is that? And then just looked up and it's like way, way above the ceiling of the lobby. And the lobby is a fucking huge ceiling. Like when you first go in there, you assume that's the height of the entire area you're in. And it was like, hundreds of meters above that. I'm like, where the fuck is he?
Yeah.
And it became, I can't remember the guy's name now, but that was just my main quest really, was to find that guy. I'm like, well, whatever I have to do, I'm going to track this guy down and get his key card and get into his office, because I think that's where Bellamy's body is. And then like 7 hours later, I was like, oh yeah, there's that email that tells you he's in Psychotronics.
Oh yeah, because that guy is dead in the Arboretum lift area. The place where you have to kill the technopath to get the lifts working.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in there. Yeah, Henrik, whatever his name is, the psychiatrist. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, man. It's like that initial sense of place is great. I think one of the things, like, so I remember when I went outside the first time I had that, because I was like, I can go anywhere. And I was like, well, I kind of, okay, I get you're doing the kind of game thing in that all of the airlocks are locked. So that's what's stopping me from going literally anywhere. But then there's a few like corpses you can find in space and hull breaches you can find. And one of them at that point in the game is Michaela's office, which you will not be asked to go to find her medicine for like another X number of hours, because it's much, much, much later in the game. But that is the hull breach and life support. And there's I think it's a telepath or a technopath, like hovering around outside, and loads of cystoids and stuff like that. And that was the place that I decided that I was just going to investigate, just to find out what was there, like hook or by crook. So this is before I'd even like done the rest of the main thread for the, sorry for the birds, by the way. There are unnecessary consequences of having the window open so that we don't die. So that was the thing where I just sort of placed myself like as far away from it as possible, pointed myself in the right direction, and just fucking gunned the engines on the suit as fast as I could. And then the moment I hit the sort of aggro radius of the technopath, hit slow-mo. And just started firing the glue gun at it, like just in a sort of desperate, like, this will slow you down kind of way. And it's funny because even returning there much, much later in the game, there was still glue fucking everywhere from that first attempt. And I did make it into the office. I didn't find the pills my first time there, or her medicine, whatever it is. But nonetheless, like, it was kind of neat having that experience of like, this is going to be important much later. Like, I don't know who Michaela, actually I think at that point you maybe an inkling who Michaela is, because you have an email from her in your office.
Yeah.
But like all of that stuff sort of is such slow burn. I think that's maybe why it's so effective early on, because it sets so many seeds that because of how consistent it is, you trust are going to become things.
I was so much more interested in emails and stuff because initially just because everything was so closely related to me and the central mystery. Like, I'd really love to sort of do a in-depth comparison of the opening of Prey and the opening of Deus Ex Mankind Divided, because that's much as I love that game, the opening of that is so unengaging. It just has nothing to do with, I just don't know how anything relates to anything. It all just feels like a bunch of arbitrary, mysterious stuff. Whereas Prey it's all about you, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. It's an immediately compelling mystery. And then very early on, you learn roughly the sort of the broad strokes of what's going on. But all the emails you're reading are from like the people who are examining you, taking notes on you, talking about you to other people. Or some of the emails are like from you. And some of the emails are to you. And so, one of those, and Michaela's email implies that you're in a relationship with her. Right. That's immediately intriguing. And then, a bunch of emails are from your brother, and all that stuff is so much, even like once they are from people you don't necessarily recognize who aren't directly talking about you, just the fact that there's this finite cast gives you kind of faith that this is going to relate to something. Whereas when you read an email in, any Deus Ex game, really, it could just be anyone. It could just be a name that's never going to come up again, has nothing to do with anybody else, and it's just there for flavor text.
Yeah, the space station setting really helps Prey in that regard. Like, it feels like there's a finite number of people that can be resolved in this game.
They basically could have done this with Bioshock. You know, it's a limited environment with a limited cast, but I suppose that it maybe for that, because it's supposed to be a whole city, they wouldn't want to, like, a list of a couple hundred people and say, that's it.
Yeah, for sure. So, Hardware Labs gives you the other part of the Looking Glass recording.
Oh yeah, and is it the scientist's office who has the Looking Glass, like, sort of triangle?
Yeah, and the coffee cup puzzle.
Yeah, that was really cool. Where you get to watch on the Looking Glass screens. Looking Glass screens being like a sort of video replay thing, except that it's like looking through a window to that time, and because it's a recording of the room you're in, which is not always true when you're looking at Looking Glass thing, where you stand in the room lets you see different parts of the recording, and he just has a bunch of conversations. They're kind of interesting, about he's kind of losing his memory, and actually I can't remember, did I ever figure out what was going on there? Because it's sort of, when memory loss comes up, you assume neuromods.
Yeah, it's heavily implied, I think, when you find his cabin later on, that he's removing his own neuromods. Because he's suffering quite a lot from visions.
What was his name, do you remember?
I can't remember his name.
It's an Italian name.
Oh, Calvino.
Calvino, yes.
That's the one.
Yeah, because I found his office, his quarters, and I found that he's got the little model village. There's actually, I thought it was going to be, so there's a little model village on a table, and then there's a Looking Glass screen with a massively blown up version of that. And so I thought it was like a live recording of the thing, and so I tried to put an object in it to see if the giant object would appear in that.
I thought that was going to be their one reference to the previous Prey, which had a shrinking section like that before.
But it didn't work. So I guess that's, I mean, if it is, I suppose it's a recording of that. And then, so there's something about like, it sounds like he lost his wife or something, and that his memory of her is in that village, and so he's trying to recreate the whole village or something. Yeah.
And then there's, one of the series of interviews that the psychologist does is with him, and he's obviously suffering from disturbing visions and stuff.
Yeah, he's the one who sees like some kind of alien thingy.
Right?
Yeah. There's quite a few people who see some sort of disturbing alien thingy before they...
Including one of the staff's children back on Earth, who has drawn a picture of a terrifying black darkness thing in cute crayons and sent it up to their mum on the station.
Wow.
Hope this doesn't happen, Mum.
Good luck.
It's worth pointing out that they went to quite, I wouldn't say extraordinary, but they made sure that every single Looking Glass panel in the game had an area behind it, however useless.
Oh yeah.
So every single one you can literally go through every single Looking Glass in that game.
Yeah, I've got a story about that, but for much later in the game. But yeah.
Oh, early on, after you sort of the initial ruse is revealed, you go through all the areas that you kind of just went through. But now they're Looking Glass screens, and so like the helipad, I just went around smashing all of those panels. And it's quite a neat little technological trick in that, all of the surface that's intact remains like a window into this other world, and all the stuff that's broken, you see the real world behind it. And it's a very interesting like visual thing when you smash half of it, So your eyes can't quite process the contradictions.
It was worth pointing out on that pad, if you pick up some junk from your apartment and leave it on the pad in the main intro section, when your helicopter lands, it's obviously there, but just rotated 90 degrees. So they're not actually cheating you in that first section. They're actually running the whole wall moving simulation thing.
Does actually happen.
Yeah, you can like leave I left the lantern on one side of the helipad.
In many ways, the clue that it wasn't real was a game by Arkane Studios.
Big mistake that.
Yeah.
Yeah, why did they test the Phantom on that? Does he respond to marketing?
What did you think of the enemy design, now that we've talked about mimics and phantoms and telepaths?
I found mimics, I like the sort of theory of mimics, and then in practice, like fighting them early on was sort of awkward, but it kind of fit that it was awkward. It was, you're obviously not in your element. It's meant to be throwing you off. And then for a while I liked them when like after I figured out that the glue gun will freeze them in their mimicked form. Like if they're pretending to be something and you glue them while they're in that state. Because earlier one making a complaint about it was like, even when I know something's a mimic, there's still nothing I can do. I've just got this wrench. I've still got to walk up to it. Way before I get to it, it turns into a mimic and attacks me. So it really doesn't matter whether it's disguised or not. And then when I discovered you could sort of lock them in place with a glue gun, I started doing that and I enjoyed that. But then like after they stopped being the main threat, I found them mostly just irritating. And I spent hours, like I say, backtracking and going, between areas to investigate my own leads. I was really, really enjoying it until I sort of hit a certain point in the main thread where they expect you to go back. And as soon as they expect you to do that, they respawn loads of enemies. And, when they respawn a load of mimics, I just found it really arduous. Like, oh, fucking hell, I just got jumped in the face because I didn't know there was going to be a mimic there. And now I just got to the way around that is to take everything really, really carefully. Like I didn't have the psychoscope at this point, so there's no way to know they're there for sure. Sometimes, the times I really like is when you, I think it's the staff canteen or something area in the lobby where you open the door and there's 4 or 5 of them. They all scuttle away and turn into things. And so you just have this moment of okay, I think the stool is one and the thingy is one. And so that kind of, puzzle is really fun. But often you just walk into a room and something, there's something already there that's, a mimic. And sometimes there's a tell and sometimes there just isn't. It's just
I found I really liked them at first. I liked the logic of figuring out which item in this room doesn't belong and that kind of thing. And then later in the game, it just became cleanup. It doesn't really matter if they jump out at me, because if they jump out at me, I'm just going to eat a lot of beans until I feel better. And it's a question of glue, 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 smack, smack, smack. Or if I'm feeling lazy because I've got a million psi-hypos, glue, 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 psi-shock, move on.
Yeah. I ended up using Psyshock, Psychoshock, on them a lot in the latter game because I had so much spare psi and it wasn't the most cost efficient way to get rid of them, but it's one of the few things that kind of auto targets. You don't have to hit them exactly. You just kind of aim roughly at them and it'll kill them. And
also aiming it works super hot. Time only moves when you move. Yeah. So it's line it up, done. So yeah, I think with regards to, by the early in the game when you first encounter phantoms, I think all of the enemy types are really effective when you first encounter them.
Yeah.
However, I think they all lose their mystique towards the end, particularly because actually there aren't very many enemy types really in Prey. There are the 3 different types of phantom. There are poltergeists, which are also known as annoying phantoms.
I really like fighting those because although they were difficult to get, but they weren't sort of chipping away at my health. Generally, they were doing something. Their attack was so kind of wishy-washy that it didn't really matter if they got me, but it felt obviously.
I was killed by a chair twice.
Oh, really? Maybe I just got lucky in terms of what they would.
They do loads of damage if they hit you or something,
right.
But it feels like the damage they do is actually maybe slightly variable. If it doesn't quite physics you enough, it doesn't do a lot. But if they really physics you, they physics the shit out of you.
Physics impacts are really inconsistent. As someone who went into strength heavily, I was, in theory, I had a really cost efficient way of dealing with everything, which is I can pick up something heavy and throw it at them. And something that requires leverage 2 to lift, I think kills a regular phantom in 1 hit. And something that requires leverage 3 to lift kills, special phantoms, I think, in 1 hit, or it's that, and then a single shot with a pistol will finish them off. But with phantoms, it was if I was able to throw it at them, it would always work. But the logic for when you can pick something up is really, you can always pick it up, but it doesn't, if it's in any way caught on anything or it thinks it's caught on something, when you try and move away from it or throw it, it doesn't go anywhere. It just stays where it is, and you kind of, you lose the pickup. And that is crazy inconsistent. Just in cases where there's so much free room, there's just nothing in the way at all. Suddenly I just can't move this thing and I can't throw it. So you just can't rely on it as a combat tactic. And also, for some reason, mimics have, an ability to bat physics objects away at incredible force. I can throw a leverage 3 thing at a mimic and there's a sort of 20% chance that one of its limbs will kind of hit it. And if that happens, it just flies across the room at absurd speeds. And actually, the first time that happened, it was in hardware labs, and, I threw a leverage 3 crate at a mimic, batted it across the lab, bounced off the back wall, and then landed on a mimic and killed it. Oh, well done.
So I was going to say, I thought the enemies remained strange and kind of unknowable for a lot longer than I expected, but it doesn't sound like that was how it felt to you either.
I think maybe I ruined ruined telepaths to myself by encountering that first one by fucking jetting at rocket speed past it in slow motion while trying to glue it, which was probably how I would respond to like a Lovecraftian horror from Beyond Time. But like, I think, because as soon as like, I think maybe we're skipping ahead of it, but it might be worth it because we've been obviously talking about the game for almost an hour, but like, I think there was a point with Prey where I was like, okay, it's a immersive sim. I can beat this with trickery and combat and things. I think when you first encounter them, you don't know how much damage you can even realistically hope to do to them. They're very scary. As soon as you realize that they are killable within maybe some expensive bounds, but like you can do it, the threat goes down a lot. And I remember the best example of that for me was like, I've been playing Prey in a very, this is a weird way to put it, but I've been playing it in a very kind of like terrestrial way. I'd been like I was saying with role playing with the engineering and stuff. And even when I started to pick up powers like Typhon powers, it was Mimic, and it was explicitly, stuff that I thought was sort of, I was going to be very subtle in my playthrough of the game. And then the point at which I would say that my playthrough really kicked into gear, and the thing that we haven't said is how wildly different our completion times were, which is really interesting because like you and I played about, when we did this for Dishonored, we played about the same amount of Dishonored.
Yeah.
So, and I don't necessarily think I saw a lot less of Prey than you guys. I think I just saw it in a different way. I didn't backtrack as much by all accounts.
Yeah.
But
so
I got like, for example, I got the achievement for seeing every email in the game. And I got the most.
I got that, but like really early, and it was clearly wrong. Like,
right. Okay, maybe that
got
was
it and
bugged.
thought like, that's strange because I'm sure there's some side quests I haven't done, and then I went and did those side quests and read a whole load of new emails, and so yeah.
Okay, well, maybe that was busted. But like, for example, so after I finished it, I went back and looked at a website that just lists like the things that factor into the ending, just out of curiosity, and I had engaged with all of those things. So in terms of crucial side quests, I'd done all of them, and my total completion time in game was 14 hours, and in Steam time was 20. And I know that yours were different, right?
Yeah, so I don't have any hard data on how long it took me because I left it alt-tabbed a lot. Like that's the thing I do a lot where I'm playing a game and I, rather than relaunch it and go through all the intro logos and stuff, I'll just tab out and do something else. And Steam always counts that as playtime, and it seems like Prey does as well. Although, like I think Prey said it was like 45 hours on my save, and Steam said like 55 hours.
Right.
So I don't know what the discrepancy there is, but clearly it didn't take me 45 hours to complete it. It felt like 30 or 35. But actually I don't have any hard data. It could have been way less. Certainly, I'm pretty sure it wasn't 15 for me. And I kind of played it, like I played it a whole weekend the first time it came out. I think I even played for 3 days. Maybe it was just 2. And I feel like I played for at least 2 weekends where I just played kind of all day, both days, and then a bunch of evenings as well after that.
It's definitely a lot longer than I was expecting.
Yeah, for me it was, I think I was really surprised by was, I guess, deep storage where you meet all the NPCs and stuff, and they're suddenly like just now there's a friendly faction, and they're
the cargo bay.
like, and you can talk to that chief of security you've been reading about for ages, and I feel like a lot of work went into that is probably not appreciated that much, because I met all those people and I helped them defend against the aliens and stuff, and then I basically didn't need to go back there for any other reason, but I happened to be going through there at some point, and everyone I passed had a unique bit of dialogue about the last quest I did, like things that had changed on the station since I last saw them. They all had things to say about it, and that isn't like a city hub that you go back to and like, that's where your shops are, or that's where you recruit people or anything. It's just this one scene, but because it's full of people, they actually bothered to do a bunch of dialogue and stuff.
I think the reason I brought up the completion time was because it was when I got to the Arboretum, just talking about enemy types losing their mystique. The thing was that when I got to the Arboretum, I think for some reason I just hit Dishonored mode. It's weird, but that's the only way I can describe it. I just decided that you get like a little glimpse of the nightmare for the first time in the Arboretum. And then I was sneaking around, and I got to the edge of, it's like, I can't remember what it's called. It's like a kind of garden area. It's like a big walled compound with gardens inside, a telepath and loads of mind-controlled humans. But there's no roof.
It's basically a greenhouse.
Yeah. And so I figured I could climb a tree, shoot glue at the wall, and get onto the roof of that thing and look down into it. And I could see that there were mind-controlled humans and a telepath. And I had the null wave grenade that disables telepaths and stuff, and the Q-beam laser. With those two things, I was able to kill the telepath relatively easily, and that was the first telepath-type enemy that I'd seen in a context where I could kill it. And doing that saved all of the humans, like, straight away. So I kind of like, beaten the quest that I didn't know I had, kind of thing. And because I'd done it by, like... I'd done that with a mixture of glue and climbing and, you know, the stuff I had in my equipment. I was like, actually, no, I have the gear to handle this. And by that point, because I'd just gone deep on the Mimic power, I had Mimic 3, which is Mimic 3 is the thing that defined Prey for me. Because as soon as I had Mimic 3, I can impersonate engineers. And in that little greenhouse, I think there's one of the engineer dispensers. Oh, sorry, operator dispensers. Like, you know, I don't know what type it is exactly. I think it's an engineer type. As soon as I can turn to that, I can fly. And so the whole thing with, like, Alex's private grav shaft thing that you get a code to later to get up to his office, totally moot. I was already up in his office. And then I got to his office, and I had hacking 3 or 4 by that point as well, so I was already in his stuff, doing that stuff, and got into his back room and found all of that. And getting into his back room is part of the quest for the early exit of the station kind of ending. And I had ignored half of that, but getting to that point skipped me ahead loads in the quest, like, straight away, and I'd hardly even touched the Arboretum yet. And then it was like, it was quite trivial to finish the rest of what I needed to get out of the station. So I sort of devoted some time to that, because I just wanted to see what happened. And I think the ending, if you go for that early exit, which I committed to at that point, because then I felt very confident in my powers to get across rooms quickly and fly around places and just do whatever the fuck I wanted. Like, that whole thing I was talking about at the beginning of the game about, beginning of the pod, like, this is a game about surviving, had completely gone, I guess, by the Arboretum, where it's like, no, this is a game about I'm fucking unstoppable. Like, I'm under no threat at all. I can just fly, turn into whatever, ignore enemies, do stuff.
Which is a fun curve.
It is fun. Yeah, it was a fun curve, but it you know, I went through an arc with it as well. Like, this was the point where I was the most kind of unsettled by it, because I felt like I'd almost broken the game a little bit. Because then I went for that early exit thing, because I was like, I've lowered the ramp, I've gotten to the escape pod, and I've done it. And I think they dropped the ball a bit with that. You guys, have you seen the...
Yeah, I did that as well. I did the same thing where I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to see what happens, and I had all the things I needed to do it. I also didn't do the grab shaft thing. I think I had super jumping by that point and, like, super sprinting or something, and I might have just leapt onto, like, the rocky thing up to Alex's place and then used some glue to, like, get up the final bit.
Right. Because, like, not to skip ahead too much, but, like, that ending, what happens is you go to leave the station early, which does actually work if you do it during the end game. Like, there's a different ending if you do it at that point. But if you do it early in the game, you get, like, a brief cutscene of Alex cancelling the bigger simulation, because...
Yeah, he says... So, because I saw this, you know, at a time where I didn't know what the real ending was, and you sort of... It's like you kind of wake up and Alex is looking over you and he says, no, this isn't the one, or something. Or it's not the one, I think, is the...
And I think that because you can encounter that quite early, I thought that gave the game away too much about what you were. Because from that point onwards, I was like, I'm a Typhon with Morgan's memories.
Do you like see your Typhon hands? Or
no,
anything?
But there's so much stuff about how Typhons work in the game and how they kind of absorb consciousness and replicate it. Or, like, I actually thought you were a Typhon. Like, that, I thought that was, like, who you were in the...
I wasn't...
And the thing that confused me was... Because there's so many references to, like, January says, you're not an alien, and things like that. And the only thing that confused me was the fact that turrets don't recognize you as an alien until you put Typhon DNA in you. And so I was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. So, like, I didn't question that the world wasn't real. I assumed I wasn't really Morgan for most of the game. So I was half right. But that half ending, which I think is because it doesn't really end the game. I think if they'd had the balls to end the game there and show you the credits... I would have been in with that, because Portal 2 originated ideas like that.
Sorry. That was the point where I wanted to go and look in a mirror. It's like, I need to know what I look like, if I have human skin over everything or not.
Yeah, I took it as a simulation thing. Well, it was for me, it worked because it was, I didn't know what was going on, didn't make sense of it, but it just had this hint of, like, to me, it sounded almost like a kind of thing like they're running a bunch of simulations and this is the simulation that didn't work out. Like it wasn't necessarily, now I know that the it he's referring to is me as a phantom. Like this is not the Typhon that that's going to work out. But at the time I thought it was like this run of the simulation is not the right one or something. But it wasn't conclusive. And so I kind of liked that because from then on it was kind of hanging over me like, there's something else going on here. It's not going to be just we rescue Talos 1 or we destroy Talos 1. It's like,
yeah.
And I guess we'll save the discussion of the actual ending for
the end.
later.
But, yeah. But I mean, yeah, so it wasn't that put me off necessarily, but I thought, like, I was expecting a sort of Portal 2 style commitment to, like, you got the early ending, you get the early ending kind of thing, whereas the fact that it just kills you and makes you go back.
Yeah.
And then leaves that quest in your quest log, which it does for a reason, because it's one of the few quests that's still active after a certain point in the endgame where things get real, but...
So you mentioned nightmares. I got those, I think, a bit earlier, because I was installing a lot of Alien mods, from as early as I could. And that mechanic sucks. I don't know how that got past the concept stage, because it's just, when you install, I don't know how many, like a couple of points of Alien mods, a nightmare shows up and hunts you, and it's just on a timer, like it's going to keep hunting you until that timer runs out, and you can kill it, or you can, it says like evade the nightmare. And I tried attacking it just to see, how viable that was, and with what I had at the time, I think it was pretty early. I guess it was like shortly after Psychotronics. I could, only put a tiny dent in its health, and it was like, well, maybe I can kill this thing, but it's going to take so much of my resources. If I can evade it instead, I will. And then evading it it was never difficult, but it was just boring. It was just like, I can just stand behind this hedge and it can't get to me. And I guess the most effective thing for me to do is to just wait and for it to go away. And so I would literally, because the first time I attacked them, it seemed like it was going to be pretty expensive, for the next like 4 or 5 times when this happened, nightmare showed up, I would just walk away from my computer, go make a cup of tea, just do something else. There was zero danger. It was literally just a boredom test. And then later on, once I was more powerful, I tried attacking them and was like, oh, this is actually easy now, and I get a bunch of exotic material. So it's also not that.
I really didn't think it worked either. Like, the first time I encountered Nightmare, I killed it, like, almost straight away, because I encountered it in the Arboretum, on the way back through the Arboretum, actually, after a bunch more of the quest stuff. But the first time I'd been through there, I had built like a massive turret trap of like 6 turrets that I'd found. And then when I went back, they were all busted, but I had like more spare parts than God and a really high repair skill, so it only cost me 2 to repair each one, so I just repaired them all. And then I realized that the Nightmare was stood staring at the wall. I hadn't seen it because it's quite dark and kind of weird looking, and against the kind of tree background, I hadn't seen it, but it was just stood there looking at the wall. So I was like, what's that? And I shot it, like with my pistol, and it kind of turns around, and then, the music sting kicks in. It's like the Nightmare is hunting you. It's like, oh shit. So I ran into the little corridor, and it just got stuck outside. Like, it was hitting one of my turrets, but the other 5 were shooting at it. And so they just rinsed it, and then it died. And I was like, oh, and then I was like, you've killed the Nightmare. And I think I talked to you at the time, Tom, saying like, do you encounter it again? Because I thought I'd just taken away a mechanic. Like, but actually that was consistent. Like, it's weird AI. It's not quite finding you correctly. The fact that it can't chase you effectively. And I think the mistake they made with the Nightmare is it's too big.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be as big as it is. If the Nightmare was the xenomorph from Alien Isolation, it would be fucking terrifying.
I think that's...
Like, if it could actually follow you meaningfully, like...
Yeah. I think that's what that system is a kind of brave attempt to mimic the terrorists and just squeeze crime. Completely unintentional. But I had bits where it broke entirely and you're just hiding behind a hedge, but I also encountered it in the lobby where I think they paid some attention to how it would move around, because there's a lot of small doors in that area, and they've given it animations to squeeze or break through small doors, and when it does that, it's genuinely terrifying.
Yeah, it's a really cool animation.
Yeah, did you guys do the satellite thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
You to summon and
the
dismiss
game was
it.
nearly over by the time I did that, and they weren't a problem for me at that point. And so the main thing I got like, it gives you like an audio recording, one of which will summon it, one of which will dismiss it. But the main thing that annoyed me was like, I didn't want to do either at the time, because you can only do it a certain number of times. I thought I might use up the charges, but it keeps nagging about you got new audio logs. You got to listen to them. I'm like, no, dude, like, if you were listening to the quest, you'll know I shouldn't listen.
I never pressed L after that point. Because about at the midpoint of the game, my audio log, play the most recent audio log button broke. And so whenever I pressed L, it would play the one that just had the guy going, I don't know where my parcel is, over and over again. It didn't matter what, like, this was for the last 5 hours of the game. It would
I think Marsh had this problem as well.
Yeah, it would always be that one. But after I got those audio logs, I was terrified that it would switch to one of them, which is pretty bad. But yeah, like, I did that, and, which is also a really cool idea, because it should be, because actually, and also an idea kind of borrowed from Alien Isolation as well, where because that is a game that really masterfully manages your power level relative to a terrifying alien that is hunting you. And one of the ways it does that is, one of the ways you get power over it is your ability to just shoo it away with a flamethrower and basically summon it by throwing things to attract it to enemies you need to get rid of. And it's about, in that game, it's about developing a relationship with this creature, basically, where it's going to kill you if it finds you, and that's never going to change, but you can use it. And that's a really interesting theme. I just don't think it worked at all in Prey. This is actually, I think, the thing that's the weakest about the game as a whole. Like, I had a couple of, this is to get a bit deeper in the game, but given that we're talking about it. So, when I had that power, obviously the nightmare would trigger pretty frequently. Most of the time it's just, I'm going to hide in this cupboard, and it doesn't have a pathing solution for getting to me in this part of the level, so I'm just going to stay here for 3 minutes and then wait. The biggest issue was always going back to the lobby, and towards the end of the game I went back to the lobby quite a lot because I had saved both Dio Igwe and Michaela, so they were both hanging out in my office, and they would give me things whenever I went back, and I was pretty low on resources and things. And if the nightmare spawns while you're in your office, it knows how to get to your office, and it will come directly to your office, and if they are in there, it will kill them both.
Holy shit. Didn't know that.
Yeah, and so the first time I did that was, there's a quest later in the game, and I appreciate this is skipping ahead, but we don't have to cover it, where you can find a recording of what happened to Michaela's father. I don't know if you did that.
Yeah.
And you have the choice whether you play it back to her or not.
Yeah, I got it and I deleted it.
I played it back to her. Cause I'm a good person. I don't care if I'm secretly a Typhon. I'm nice kind of playthrough. And I played it back to her, and then midway through, and it's a long scene, cause you have to listen to the entire audio log. You have to just put it on your PC and play it. And it plays like it would anywhere in any other context, only she's listening to it,
right.
And you can see her react, and, she emotes a bit and that kind of thing. Then about 4 seconds into the audio starting to play, suddenly the sting goes up and the nightmare is hunting you starts. And I can see from where its health bar appears, superimposed on my vision, that it's down at like the bottom of the lobby, and she's listening to this tape. And I really didn't want to burn one of my get rid of the nightmare satellite charges. So I was like, I'm going to see if we can get to the end of this tape before this thing comes up the stairs, because I have to stand here. Because if I'm not standing here, I don't know if this quest is going to work.
Happen.
Yeah, and I can just see it like going like down the bottom, and I know the lobby well enough by this point. They're like, oh, it's just hit the bottom of the okay, it's going up the stairs. It's going all the way up the stairs. It's going up the stairs really quickly. It's booking it directly here, and then it's coming like around the corner. And then I was like, oh shit! So I went to the menu, played the tape, like to get rid of it, as like Michaela's like sobbing, finding out the awful thing you did to her father. And I play the tape, and it just poof vanishes. Like it just stops in midair, like as it comes through the door. And it's like, oh, thank God for that. And then I didn't want to like burn through those charges, so that I did to save that quest because Michaela was still listening to it. And then Michaela turns to you like, I can't believe you, she hates you initially, and then she comes back around to you later. And she's like, you have no idea what I just did. I just used the magic phone call to prevent like a 20-foot alien monstrosity from murdering everybody. And then the thing I discovered later on is that it can find you if you're in your office really easily. So if it spawns when you're in your office, it will come directly for you. And I checked, like I let it come in, a quick save and let it come in. And the first thing it did is basically just gun down both of them immediately. And they run for cover, but they die like instantly. and that's that. That whole thread basically gone. But if you hide in your looking glass, it can't find you. It gets really confused. So every time that would happen while I was in my office, I would run out of my office, down round the corner into the back door of my looking glass and hide in my looking glass for 3 minutes. And then when it was gone, I'd smash my way back through the looking glass, like back into the room, and then use the thing on the computer to fix the looking glass, which is a bit like, oh, where's Morgan gone? Oh, she'll be back in a minute. And then suddenly the window smashes like, I'm back, everybody. Like,
just have it like play a video of you just before you do that, so you kind of come out of your own image.
Yeah. And then, the only other nightmare to finish on nightmare AI things that are busted as fuck. So I had a really cool idea. So late in the game, you get access to the shuttle bay, which is basically the area it holds off for the longest, because when the TranStar security man comes to be bad, and be a new villain the game needs in its third act. He arrives in the shuttle bay, and when we get there, I want to talk about how I basically bypassed that entire area and it was trivial, and that's one of the reasons I think my playthrough sped up so dramatically. But one thing I tried doing was summoning the nightmare there, because there are so many at that point, like hostile operators and hostile turrets, that like summon the nightmare is a huge distraction. And I did this from a vantage point where I could see that entrance area, but I was miles from it. Like, see the entrance area where there are, you know, loads of defenses and things like that. Because I thought maybe I'll use that to distract them while I get out. And I played the thing, and the nightmare spawned in the middle of that area. Because it's so big, it just plops into place in basically the only area in that map that's big enough for it, which is like the entrance area of the level in front of all this turret stuff. So all the turrets and the operators start shooting at it, and it doesn't really move because it's actually too big to fit in the place that it's in. So it starts shooting at them, and it knocks over one turret, but it takes so much damage from like the laser weapons and the other turrets that it dies, like really quickly without having moved, and just sort of vanishes on the spot. And so I tried it, loaded the save. I was just experimenting with it at this point, and summoned it and then dismissed it immediately, and it just like pops in and out of existence on the spot. And it feels like stuff like that, they needed to mask those moments better. It can't just be that summoning it makes it literally just pop into existence, and and dismissing it makes it just vanish on the spot wherever it is.
Yeah,
it has to be that it goes and finds a vent and climbs into the vent and leaves. Like,
it feels almost like a feature that was turned out to be too much work, and they just didn't want to scrap all the work they'd done. Like, it was obviously difficult to get it to that stage, and it was never going to be able to navigate all of the spaces in the game seamlessly.
I just think broadly, it's such a nice idea, and it's such a nice consequence for installing all that Typhon stuff, is you get all this power, but suddenly, like, the scariest enemy in the game is hunting you. But it's not really. The scariest enemy in the game is in the level, but it's not trying very hard.
There's, when you get, Michaela and, Igwe back to your office, they have, again, it's this weird thing where, like, that was weird. Like, I felt like a Mass Effect crew I was putting together, and this is like in the last, I feel like I was, at least 15 hours into the game at that point. Like, I thought the game was about to wrap up, and it's like, this is a whole format change. This is like a different type of game now, and recruiting people and stuff. And then those two, they're talking about like the volunteer experiments, I think, and they get into an argument. It's kind of like, it sounds like background chatter, like this is what's happening, and then, so they're chiming in on it. And you're just walking around, you can do whatever you like. It's not like a sort of scripted scene or anything. But their like background chatter gets heated to the point of absurdity, where like Michaela just threatens to kill him. You say anything else, I'm going to murder you. It's like, holy shit, this is like not just flavor dialogue. And then he does say something else, and she doesn't kill him because it's actually an independent conversation. Also, Igwe, when I was in the cargo bay where all the NPCs are holding out, he radioed me to say, I've got another solution for the, who's the commander, the shuttle guy?
Walter Dahl.
I got a solution to the Dahl problem. I'm in your office. Come and meet me. And as I got that radio message, I'm looking at him in the cargo bay, like he's just standing in a room there. Like, no, you're fucking not. Yeah.
I did really appreciate how there are humans in this game that aren't purely there to be killed in a variety of terrifying ways, or sucked into vents.
And it's pretty cool that they all can be killed. Like, they're all just...
Yeah. I think it doesn't answer all the problems that creates for the game. Like, other people's travel time between locations is totally busted in Prey. Maybe you can ignore that, but I think it's great that it has that element, because it does, as you say, feel like a format change when it commits to that.
Did you, in that area where, in the cargo bay where all the people are holding up, did you take any of the food?
Yeah, it tells you off.
Yeah, because the first time I walked through, I thought about it and I thought, oh no, I guess that's clearly a stockpile. I won't take it because they need it more than I do. And then later on, I just kind of absentmindedly picked up like an apple or something, and they're like, hey, that food's not for you.
The funniest thing that happened to me in cargo bay is when you open because there's some of the really nice reactive things. When you get in there, someone's like trying to beckon you to get up on the gantry and join them because it's dangerous, like you're fighting phantoms. But if you just kill all the phantoms, they let you in the front door and are like, holy shit, like what the fuck are you? Because at that point I'm a teleporting magic woman that can turn into a turret and then shoot people. So that was a nice touch. And then, so I decided I was going to be a sort of a giant badass when I did you open the doors and you set the turrets up for them and you have to fight all of the stuff that's coming through the door. This is one of the few times in the game I save scummed, because the first time I did it, the Typhon knocked one of the turrets over, and that turret independently killed every single human being in the cargo bay. And it wasn't like it was just malfunctioning and shooting into the air and it happened to kill them all. Cause I remember, cause I sort of dived into the warehouse through the door to like take them on. You know, I can teleport and leave decoys and create explosions and throw grenades and all this stuff in bullet time. I'll fight them head on so that they don't even get through the door. When I turned around, this one turret was killing everybody. And I didn't even I was like, okay, maybe it fell over and shot someone. And then, I think it's Sarah, the security chief, came down the grav shaft and came out, and then it just killed her. It stopped firing and just started shooting at her. And she was halfway through, Morgan, I can't thank you. I was like, oh. And I was I had this moment of is this canon? Did this happen? And I decided it wasn't. And then I don't understand what happened there. Cause the turret hadn't been controlled or anything. It just went rogue. Decided to murder everybody. And it's nice that the game lets that happen, but at the same time, it was one of those sort of yep, Prey moments. Can I ask, did you get to the end of the chef that's not the chef storyline?
Yeah, that.
Was that the most hilariously fucking broken thing in the game?
Okay, so that quest was terrible from the start for me. As soon as he starts talking, it's this, sort of, it feels like it wants to be Sander Cohen in Fort Frolic, and it's just a chef yelling at you, and he's got his own he's got his own shtick, but the shtick didn't really work for me. And then when he talked to him, my heart just sunk, because it was go and get this trophy from my quarters, and then I'll let you into this kitchen. And I'm I don't know, why do I even want to be in the kitchen? This is not at all interested in this. And then the quest just fucking broke. Just I was pissed off about that, and I went and it's clear, you get to his room and it's clear he's not this guy, and so, you could still get the award. I think there's some information I missed in that room, because my quest log was oh, I know it's this other guy now, and I the name of whoever it turned out to be was not apparent to me. I didn't see,
it's a volunteer. It's one of the volunteers.
Yeah. Whatever his name is, I didn't glean that from the apartment, but I gleaned that the guy who lives in the apartment is not that guy. And so I still just picked up the award and went back to him. I think I was also pissed off because I'd already cleaned out a whole area, and you're kind of not allowed in there until he gives you the key card. So I had to go back to it. And then when I got back to him, I like it. First of all, it's an uninspiring quest at best to begin with, to go and fetch some trinket for somebody. And then also, doesn't make any sense to me that it would send you to the place that reveals he's not who he says he is. He just sends you to the one place that completely blows his cover. And then when he got back there, when he opens the slats to let you in, I already obviously didn't trust this guy, and you're given not really any way to express that. So what I did was I shot the door opening thing, the button that would open the door to his place, while he was asking me for the trophy. So I didn't give him, I think I might even give him the trophy and he was offering me the key card or something, but the slat was open, the quest was not complete. And I just shot the door open and went around the side and went in there. And as soon as you go in there, he treats it as a combat situation, and goes no, I'm no threat to you, and starts to run away. And then as he ran past me, I got a use prompt to use him to turn in the quest. So I used him, and then he went into sort of, not quite T-pose, but sort of model default pose, and then just sunk into the floor, and then just started drifting through the rest of the canteen with just his torso coming out. And then slowly, I followed him and just watching him fascinatedly as his torso clips through the floor, and then he stops, and then he just kind of sinks slowly to the ground until it's just
with a shame.
Wow, that did not work. And then so I also reloaded a bunch, because I was doing something kind of tricky there, so I wasn't totally pissed off with the game for not supporting that. But I gave him the thing, and then it just becomes this thing where the only reason to do what he says is just to find out what the content is. It's so clear, you already know for sure.
I'll give you this, just give me the content.
Yeah. And so then when I did it and you've been knocked out, it was the weakest gotcha, because you know it's coming. So how did it end for you?
So this is the moment where, this is the first thing that made me laugh out loud, and the first thing that I think made me go because I've been so impressed, and I am so impressed, and it's so easy to, I think we've had someone comment on the pod that when we talk about Prey, it's so easy to dwell on the things it really fucks up. So when it fucks up, it seems to fuck up big. It's not I think Dishonored makes, if Dishonored has issues, they're much smaller.
Yeah. Whereas
when Prey fucks up with something like The Nightmare, it's it dominates the experience to an extent. So if you do his quest and then you do the Danielle Show quest and you find her outside the station and she comes to talk to you, she gives you the quest of finding him and killing him. To stop him from hurting anybody else. And I found him by accident. You find him in one of the escape pods in the bridge, in the Talos One bridge.
So you find who?
The chef.
Oh, the real chef?
Yeah. No, the fake chef. After he kidnaps you and runs away.
After he freezes you, he disappears.
Yeah.
So
he's
got out.
He's in one of the escape pods, like getting ready to go.
Right.
But he knows that.
Yeah, I guess I never continued from there because I had one save where I tried it out to see what happened, and then I went back to my other save where I just killed him.
Right. So if you do that and you follow me, you get a quest to track him down.
Right.
And I found him by accident. He's in one of the escape pods in the bridge, and he is obviously determined by this point. Although his objective's not exactly clear, he's determined by this point that he can't get off the station because the escape pods don't work, and that's a plot point. So when you encounter him, I can't remember. John, have you seen this? Do you know what he says? Because it's one line he has.
I can't remember exactly.
I think I'm totally paraphrasing. It's not a dazzling bit of dialogue. It's something like, we will be together forever, you and I. Like it's a sort of, and this is how it ends, you and I kind of message. I can't remember exactly what the wording is. And he has a proximity triggered recycler charge on the wall next to him that triggers when you enter the pod, and it's obviously designed to kill you both. The first time this happened, it doesn't make any sense that he's been sat there for presumably hours waiting for you to show up. But still, with a proximity triggered recycler charge, it would presumably kill him if he moves next to him.
Yeah.
But I had the suit mod installed that makes me completely invulnerable to recycle charges. So so it was the end of the quest, and so I walked into the pod, and he goes and I was like, oh, and so I immediately drew my stun gun because I was like, I'm going to subdue you, right? And he goes, oh, we'll be together forever, you and I, and then just sort of vanishes into a point and turns into organic matter, which I then collected, and I was fine. And I was like, oh, he was trying to kill me. And then I get the quest pop up quest complete, you killed him. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't.
I had a weirder resolution. So by that point, I was so used to finding his traps all around the place that I would automatically disarm them. So I just walked in there, immediately disarmed it, and he just kind of convulses and falls over.
Yeah, no, this is how it went for me. So then I went in, slowed time, and picked up the recycler charge, took it off the wall and removed it. At which point he goes, we're not that different. We're not that different, you and I. And then looks at you. He finishes his line and stares at you for slightly too long, and then just goes, and dies on the spot of old age. He just dies dead.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I can see your trick game. I see what you're trying to get me to do. So the third time I loaded the save, I burst in, slowed down time, took the recycler charge off the wall, pulled out the electric stun gun, and rendered him unconscious, and started to pull him out of the pod. And obviously then at that point you got your mouse over him, and it says guy's name, unconscious. And then I went pulling, he didn't even get to finish his line, and I'm pulling him out the thing, and as he's unconscious, he just suddenly goes, eh. And then it goes from unconscious to dead. It's oh, okay. I gave it up on that point and went back and loaded the save and just did it my original way, or I walked in, and because I'm immune to recycler charges, it was this plan wasn't fucking great, mate.
I hope he does actually say something we'll be together now, in a tiny little, organic matter cube.
Yeah, exactly. But it was I'm just gonna make fucking health packs out of you. But it was one of those moments of oh, you really didn't want to make several endings to this quest line. You really didn't want to make the what happens if you disarm it ending. You didn't want to make the what happens if you knock him out ending. You just wanted you to find him and kill him. And that was, I think at that point I stopped pushing too hard at the fringes of pro simulation, because there's definitely a point where, at least in some of the side quests, it just gives up.
There's also, it seems like it doesn't handle any situations well in that quest, because, mine was probably, my canon playthrough was probably, decent in that, I saw, cause I knew he was, up to no good, I gave him the award, he let me in, and then I just killed him. And then I investigated the locker and found all the notes from, or the transcribes of, what's Danielle's girlfriend?
Oh,
anyway, her, and sort of unraveled that plot a bit. And then there's a note in there about meeting her next to the pool. And I went and did that, and that's visually really cool. Like her drifting outside, in that cool space helmet. But of course, like you can't, even though your voice is in the game loads, you can't talk in any way, like, from first person. And so she just had to do all the sort of exposition work of this, cause she doesn't give you a quest to kill him, cause I'd already killed him. So she had to kind of like, do her normal spiel and then say, oh, I'm guessing you're the reason that his bracelet just went dead or went red or something. So thanks for that. So, wow, you just made up a whole thing by yourself there. Like, you happen to be right, but.
Yeah, it feels
from your silence, I take it that you murdered him for me as revenge for my girlfriend. I'm grateful for that.
I think that's probably the best reason that, like, when it does introduce other human characters, they tend to be sort of vaguely aligned with you, but it doesn't matter if they die, which is probably the perfect state for a human.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all the people in the cargo bay that were kind of, would like to, they introduced them earlier, and, all the work they put into them commenting on stuff would have come up more, and they're not trying to do any like clever scripting stuff. They don't really have any quests as far as I know. And so those guys just work. They can die, they can live, and they'll chat a bit, and that's it. And I think that should have been the limit of their friendly NPCs.
Humans.
Yeah.
So are we skipping much? Should we get ahead to Dahl's arrival? What are we missing if we... Because I just thinking about, like, obviously time, but also...
Yeah, I can't think of much else.
Crew quarters and deep storage.
Deep storage is a kind of cool sequence. I like being ejected into space, although it was an excuse to hit you in something so you could have a flashback. Or a flash sideways.
And then resetting the reactor. I think.
Yeah. I did enjoy a lot of that technical stuff.
I think I talked about this in the main pod, but when I wouldn't have said the details because it would be a spoiler. Just when you're on your way to reset the reactor, Michaela's the one who's been telling you how to do it, and she, in extremely polite way, sort of mentions that she's dying and there's no way she could possibly get her medicine from her office, and doesn't ask you to do it. She just sort of says that, and a timer starts ticking down that's like 2 hours. And so my new reaction, time limit, but it is like 2 hours. And I thought my sort of read on what was happening was I was being given a choice of like, oh, do you want to like ignore her and get on with the main quest, or do you want to double back now and go and get her medicine? And I like, there's an airlock right near you where you are, but you can't get through it because the power shut down. And my objective was to go in and reset the reactor to get the power back online, which was right ahead of me. And so I kind of took a gamble. I was like, I think my shortest route to your office is to go and restart the power. And so I did that whole quest, but I did it even though I had 2 hours, I did it in like lightning mode and just sprinted through it, and it was brilliant. Like the time limit, even though it wasn't tight at all, just kind of made me sprint past everything, and I actually that's when I got repair 3, because there's some puzzles you have to solve there where it's like either go and get a replacement one or fix this one with repair 3. So I'm like, fuck it, 8 points, get repair 3, fix this, go through here. And then like I did it with like 1 hour, 45 minutes to spare or something.
That was funny for me. I think I told you this already, Tom, but like as soon as you enter that area, Michaela talks to you, and it's before you meet her and she gives you that quest formally. And she says, just in passing, in the kind of exposition-y way that video game characters do, like, I'm definitely dying, my pills are probably in my office, but you should probably come down to, like, and I realized at that point, like, oh, I know where that is. So I'd only just entered life support, I think, which is the first area you pass through. But I just doubled back, went back to the cargo bay, shot myself out back into space through the way you get into the cargo bay, went round to where I knew her office was from my kind of glue and slow-mo based adventure at the beginning of the game, found her medicine, went back, and then by the time I even met her and she gives you that quest, I already had her stuff. And it's nice that it's already in the game at that point, so that when I could speak to her, it was a nice moment of her saying, like, I don't expect you to save me. I have to sit here forever until I die. But anyway, the power's over here. And I'm like, no, shut up. Here's your medicine. And she's like, I have to sit here anyway because animation reasons. Like, but thank you. And so, yeah, I just bypassed that entire thing. Like, I never even saw that timer. I just done in one, basically.
Thinking of time limits, the bridge is a place you can go to pretty much any time after you've discovered the Arboretum.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting...
Yeah, there is an interesting quest there.
Moral choice there.
I did not go to the bridge until I was literally told to. So it was literally the very last thing in the game. And that thing was just there. And it's just like, oh, I guess I would just resolve this quickly then as well.
Yeah, I did it much earlier in the game.
A fun countdown where a shuttle is approaching landing Earth that's recently been dispatched from the station, and the ex-commander of the station has been given the choice whether to detonate it or not. What did you do?
I detonated it.
Yeah. I didn't really think about it at all, because they mentioned it had departed about half an hour before the initial outbreak.
Yeah, well, it was before the first reported thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
But there's so much groundwork laid about how the station is basically hemorrhaging not just neuromods, but all kinds of stuff at that point.
So as we pretty early on what your choices, or what some of your choices are going to be for the ending, and so you're invited to think about this throughout the game. And I could tell what the game was pushing me towards, but I wanted to think about what would I really do in this situation, and my thoughts on the situation were the things we know about the aliens is one, you can totally fight them. You can just shoot them. They do die. We don't have the best weapons up here on the station because we weren't really prepared for this, but down on Earth, they got military. I think we can just shoot the aliens. If the aliens get to Earth, we can just shoot the aliens. But blowing up the station, doesn't even necessarily kill them all because they can live in space. And some of them are already outside the station. They're just floating around. Maybe we catch them in the blast radius. Perhaps the plan is that the blast radius will catch all of those, but that's no guarantee at all. You can tell me that these black creatures on a black background, you're 100% sure there aren't any a little bit further out.
Yeah, I destroyed it because my initial thing was you definitely can't be sure, and it's a bad thing. If they get in, they'll kill people. So just everyone on the station is somewhat culpable.
I was
Blow
thinking
the fucking thing
specifically of an audio log that happens a few days before the initial outbreak of an engineer trying to replace a resistor bank, and it melts into black goop.
Yeah.
And it's by that point, everything's fucked. Everything's compromised. Blow it all to shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that decision. I have another thing about the game's particular logic vis-a-vis blowing up the station, but I want to get to that when we actually talk about the ending. But
so Dahl, I feel like I might have skipped or missed some bit of dialogue here. I felt like I was suddenly in the middle of this Dahl situation without having a full briefing. Oh yeah, Igwe saying, I've got some other way to deal with Dahl. He said that, and it was okay, I'll check in with you when I'm next to my office. And I didn't happen to go back to my office until I just ran into Dahl in a situation where he was behind some glass and I was behind some glass, and there was a apparatus there to flood his room with gas. And I'm okay. And I knew that Igwe was telling me about that there's a non-lethal solution.
Yeah.
And I was is this it? I'm not allowed to talk to you. I'd have to go back to my office to find out. So it's going to be quicker for me to just save and just try the gas solution, see if that is non-lethal. And it turns out it is.
Weirdly, in 2 playthroughs, I've never encountered that sequence.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you can resolve that situation by finding his hacker bot, which is in another area of the station, which is that's the thing that's giving him control over all of the systems and stuff.
Oh, right.
So you can just either hack or destroy
that. Shuts down all the military bots.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly when they stopped, but I was fighting the military bots for a long time. My resource glut had been mounting and mounting for the whole game, and then I hit that point. And also around that time, you're doing a lot of backtracking, which means you're not finding new stuff, really. It's places you already picked clean. And I'm fighting military bots 100% of the time and getting no new resources. And so all my resource stockpiles just started going down and down and down. It was kind of good, actually. It kind of balanced out. Other than Psi-Hypos, I totally ran out of medkits. Didn't really run out of ammo, but I wasn't really using guns that much anyway. And it, there was definitely some situations where shit, I don't know what I do without a medkit. I need to get to this, an operator. And...
So I'm going to tell the story of how quickly the game ended at that point for me. Because this was actually the point at which my power curve was just boop, done, solved. So, Dahl arrives. Dahl... the first thing you have to do is find his shuttle, which is in the newly unlocked shuttle bay, which is very heavily patrolled by turrets and the military operators, which are the laser-mounted bots. I get down there, I sneak around the side to get to the point where the shuttle is on a raised platform with loads of security around it. But I found a point where I snuck past a bunch, destroyed 2 of the bots, but stayed completely unseen, got to the edge, mimicked one of the bots, turned into that, and they'll only chase you a certain distance if you've mimicked them, because it's that's one of us. So after a certain point... flew over to the shuttle without raising the platform, leaned off the wing, used remote manipulation to open the door just by activating the panel, because you need to be next to it, but you don't if you can telepathically use buttons with your brain. jumped inside the shuttle, got all the stuff from that, got back outside the shuttle, flew back, jumped off, found a nearby bot, turned into it, flew back across, got out of the level. At that point, it triggered the dolls going to do the kill everyone in crew quarters. You got to get to life support and get to the O2 thing. I'd already been there and cleared all of that out, so I went there, just ran past all of the Typhon in the way using the teleport power just to leave decoys behind. There are 2 operators outside his door, used machine mind on one of them, so they started fighting each other, slowed time, started hacking the door to the room he's in, before I'd even seen him in the game, opened the door behind him, tased him, left him there, went back outside, went immediately to Neuromod, because Igwe goes, oh, you've got him, great, we'll meet you in Neuromod. Went immediately to Neuromod, Igwe was already there with him, in the bit where you can extract his neuromods. Extracted his neuromods, made him forget everything, turned him good, went to the other part of neuromods, disabled his bot, set up the shuttle, all fine, went to the end, ended the game. It was literally half an hour from that point. And it was just because it was strange because I knew I was sort of accelerating the game, but at the same time I have all of these powers.
Yeah.
I can just bypass this. And it wasn't speedrunning, it was just
Sorry, could you, just at the very end after you, neuromodded him, what did you do?
Killed his, bot in Neuromod.
And then how did you end the game?
Well, at that point I went straight to Alex. Triggered the Apex Typhon bit, which sort of begins.
The null wave.
So my ending, I guess we're into ending territory at this point. Yeah. We're into it. So went to Alex, and I did really like the sequence. It was just that I felt like I'd been so careful and so slow, even when my power level was quite high. And then at some point, basically when Dahl arrived, I just realized how powerful I was, and I can just end this. Nothing is a threat to me, especially when you can fly. I think maybe giving you the ability to fly was a mistake, because being a robot and flying was just so powerful all of the time in every context. And so went and found Alex, and then the Apex Typhon shows up. I saved Alex by that was a nice prey moment of the logic of the game. I had already grabbed him and dragged him into his safe room and closed the door to save him.
Oh, right.
Before it told you could do that.
Huh.
That was
that
was just logical to me, that he was floating off unconscious. I just grabbed him and just flew him into his safe room.
What made him unconscious?
He gets rendered unconscious by I don't think he's wearing a spacesuit, and the Apex Titan busts the windows open.
Right.
And he starts to float away, and you can grab him.
I think one time, because I did a lot of saving load around this time, obviously. One time I just ran away from him and just went on and got on with stuff. And I think I was doing what he said, put the super null wave thing on the thing, and so I just didn't bother with him. I just left him, so I never found out what happened to him. And then the next time when I was trying out getting his keycard to destroy the place, I thought I just shot him with the shotgun to kill him, but it sent him pinwheeling off the balcony, and he landed down on the rocks, and then I looked down on him and he's just unconscious. Actually, it wasn't even unconscious, he got back up, he was just, ragdolled, and he got back up. And then, I had to finish him off. It's quite tough.
So for me, I already grabbed him and started to drag him into a safe room, which is how you save his life.
Right.
You get him to safe room and close the door. Obviously safe room's got loads of stuff in it, so that's good. So my ending was I did that, and then I went and armed the null wave, and again, just getting through areas was so quick at that point, I could just sort of fly off to do it. This is the point where I got a bit frustrated, because what I wanted to do, because the null wave, the super null wave makes a lot of sense, because it's a weapon harms the Typhon. So my plan, as someone who wants to erase all evidence, but I'd come around to the idea of because I'd saved Dahl, I could get all of the survivors off the station in the shuttle, was okay, I thought that the ending would be a bit longer than it was. So I thought my ending, if I'd been able to do all of the things that were logically in front of me, was detonate the null wave device to hurt the Typhon. Because I also thought the shot might not be able to get away if the Typhon outside the station is still there. So detonate the null wave device, activate the self-destruct, make sure there are no Typhon on the shuttle, send the shuttle off, and then die with the station. Because that I felt was the ethical ending. Because Morgan has to die because you're stuffed full of Typhon. So at that point, I figured that was the choice it was going to make you make. It was you've taken all these powers all game, it's time to go. And so that was the ending I wanted. So I did the first part of that, which was the null wave bit, which means you have to kill January in order to do that. And because I'd saved Alex, he's there, and January knocks him unconscious and that kind of thing. And so I killed January, so I could detonate. 'Cause, I mean, also, I have a machine in my office that makes Januaries. So, like, less of a sacrifice than you think. Also, I'm about to kill myself, so fuck it. Like, you know. And then pressed the button and then got the ending. And so I was like, oh, okay, so this is an either or thing. So the second time I went through it, I decided that the ending I actually want is the destroy the station ending, because that's the one that makes the most sense to me overall. If we're kind of hand waving the fact that destroying the station also effectively lets the shuttle go and destroys the Typhon, then fine, we'll do that. And this, I knew I wasn't going to try and get away, because you get the time window where you can try and escape the station, and you can either try and get to the shuttle or get to the escape pod if you've prepped it from the side quest to get out, and in which case January does try and stop you. But I decided I was just going to, I was going to stay, but I wanted to try and get Alex off the station, because while you were trying to destroy the station, January knocks him unconscious if he's still alive, and you're in the bridge. So there was no way of getting him to the actual shuttle, and because you can't drag bodies through
level transitions.
Yeah. I thought, I'm going to try on the off chance that Prey has one last kind of Hail Mary respecting your agency left in it. I'm going to try getting him to the escape pods in the bridge, because there is a bank of escape pods in there. So I dragged him all the way down the stairs and down to there's a grav shaft that leads down to the escape pods. And I'm going to get him into one of those escape pods. I'm just going to press the fucking button and see what happens, and see if it lets me get him off the station. And then I'm going to go back up to the bridge and die with the station. And, I get him to the grav shaft, and I didn't even know if you could pull bodies into grav shafts with you at that point. And so I sort of like bundle him into the grav shaft and then follow him down the grav shaft. And then I go to pull him out of the grav shaft, and it just says like, Alex dead. I was like, oh. And so I just sort of like mournfully got in the other grav shaft and went all the way back up to the top and did the ending where you sit in the chair to just await the end of the destruction of the space station. Yeah, so that's how it went for me in the end, and I don't know how it went for you guys.
So I did the null wave thing, and then my sort of canon ending was I just got in the shuttle with the rest of them and just left. I was pretty, like I say, I was kind of like doing...
You don't get a choice about that if you do the null wave ending, do you? You just automatically in the shuttle.
Null wave is one ending, and then the detonation has like a bunch of other sequences you can run through.
Right. Yeah, so I escaped with them, and going by my, again, logic that, like, basically we can fight these aliens if we need to, and destroying the station won't conclusively get rid of them anyway. Then you wake up in the Alex's sim lab thing, and all is revealed. All those key characters are operators, for some reason. You don't find out what happened to Morgan, right?
No, I think it's purposely
implied
less
you're
vague.
dead, I think.
Although, so my interpretation was that you are the Phantom of Morgan.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Morgan died, but...
Yeah.
Or like having too much Typhon in Morgan turned Morgan into a Phantom that has now been re-injected with Morgan. I don't know, that's one interpretation of it, that you are the Phantom that was Morgan, but that doesn't fit with this one's busted.
Yeah, that's what I was just
There's
thinking.
a whole email chain and audio log about injecting human stuff into the Typhon that you discover fairly early on. And it doesn't sound like you needed like a specific test subject for that.
Right.
But I have an important question about the very final post-credit sequence, which is, it's basically this was all a dream sequence. Why isn't it shit? Why isn't it the worst thing that just undermines everything else that you've gone through?
It almost is. It almost is.
The thing that undermined for me was, before, like, as I was, saving, loading and doing these endings, I see how various things happen, like the early escape and, all this stuff. After I was doing my sort of escape ending, I was thinking, well, I'm going to go back and see, I was doing this to find out, my bet is that we can cope with the alien threat, but can we? Let's find out. Let's do the ending and see what happens. And then, of course, you don't find out what happens because it's all a simulation and there was no consequences to anything. And so all my plans to like replay different ways suddenly just went out the window. I'm like, oh, so I'm not like, well, no matter what I do, I know exactly how they'll judge me because I've just heard the version for that. And I know that the other side will be like, oh, he shouldn't have done this or he should have done this. And you don't get to find out what the consequences of your actions are. So it's like, oh, there's no point in doing those actions then. I'll just see this reflected again.
I think the things that work for me is that it means that there is a purpose for parts of the story being as kind of like flatly kind of moralizing as video games tend to be. Like, you know, there's a reason that you were tested in this specific way. It does make subsequent run through that test less impactful. And I actually ended up finding in the one I want to consider canon, I killed everybody at the end. Despite I got like the most empathetic ending achievement, and all the bots were like, he saved me when he didn't have to. And the Michaela bot is like, you know, she showed me the recording when she didn't have to, and you know, there's something there, and you know, I would vote to save her. And I know that I think they just kill you if you've been an asshole basically for the entire game. They don't give you the choice at the end.
Oh, right.
But I just, you know, and obviously the shake hands option is there. But I was like, it doesn't really matter what I do. And it's actually a funner, it's a more fun kind of Twilight Zone twist ending. If they went to all this extent and their monster experiment completely aced the kind of human morality test, and then was just like, fuck you guys.
And just murdered them.
And just murdered them. So that was my ending for Prey. It was just like, and then I murdered them.
The writing of that sort of debrief thing is really funny, because there's some obviously like the custom lines to respond to specific things. And then there's, I can't remember what side quest it is or what element it is, but there's one of them where Igwe just says, and then there was the X situation, and they just don't say anything about it, they just move on. And then I think the next thing he says, really, we can't be sure of his motivations for anything that it did. And it's like, oh, alright then. That's like, this whole thing was pointless then, wasn't it?
I think it's better than the game would have been with a different twist or no twist. I think if it had just ended on that point, it would have felt quite flat. Because it does just sort of end, I think, and quite abruptly. Yeah, I actually don't think it's shit, but I'm also struggling to articulate why I don't think that And It Was All a Dream is bad.
It offers further revelations and actually shows you. Like, I think the bad version of that is you wake up and you discover that everyone you've been talking to is a bot and it's been a simulation, and they just end it there. But they reveal further stuff, and then they give you a choice at the end. I think that's quite interesting. Yeah,
it's a good double. I think also it is a kind of meaningful continuation of Alex's character, which is sort of the twist at the end is basically that Alex just kept going, and is still trying to figure this stuff out, and the world is basically burning, and you know, this stuff is ongoing. I think it helps answer for some of the kind of, I think the story's potentially anticlimactic if you, for example, blow up Talos 1 and the Typhon threat is gone, and well, that's that then, you know, like the fact that the twist ending is the Typhon kind of already won, and this whole thing is only happening because the Typhon have basically taken over Earth. Is a cool setup for a sequel, potentially, if that's the direction they go in. A Prey 2, if you will. Or it's, but either way, it kind of gets them out of the problem of like, and it was all for naught. You worried about it for nothing, you know? Like, it gets them into
it's hard to make good on both those endings without invalidating one of them.
And also it means it's sort of interestingly ambiguous what actually happened to Talos 1. Like, what did real Morgan actually do is sort of an interesting mystery. And how did she die? Why do they have her memories? Where is she? You know, that kind of thing that's all kind of good stuff, I think, that's left hanging in an interesting way by the game, whereas having it just resolved would have been unsatisfying. I did really enjoy the build up to that moment. Like, not all games are going to get this perfect, but digging through the side quests to get to the secrets, like did you get Morgan's psych analysis from the secret safe?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a nice kind of thing to have found when you get a sense of what she's done to herself and how she's changed. And I think, you know, for all of the nitpicking, there's loads of stuff I do really admire about that game's writing. Like, I like that you are a significant character in that world who has a reason to have changed and not to have necessarily a memory of who they were, but also who was not a good person, like, at all. Like, you were a complete asshole, and that's a nice thing to kind of live with.
Yeah, it's interesting that the personality drift stuff is interesting because they, it means you're not locked in, that they're not saying you are who your past says you are. And they also explain why, how you've left multiple instructions for yourself that completely contradict each other, like the December and January thing.
Yeah. It's a very Bioshocky twist. I mean, it's not really a twist because you find out pretty early on, but like,
it's weird. I feel like it kept asking me to sort of, figure out, is January the real me, or is the other one the real me? And it just seemed clear to me that there wasn't an answer to that. Like, there's personality drift, and therefore, but January keeps making that argument, like, trust yourself, trust what you programmed me to do. And it's like, that argument really doesn't fly anymore.
I found January overall more convincing than Alex, generally. Like, I think the whole thing with Prey is it feels like a more kind of like lived-in, believable Bioshock for a bunch of different reasons. One of which is having these kinds of instructions from an alternate you, which is specifically a Bioshocky thing that happens in both of those games. In those games, it's a huge twist, quote unquote, where like the revelation of who Andrew Ryan is relative to you and who Comstock is relative to you are like the moments those games hinge on. And Prey deals with some of the same ideas in terms of what it means to be asked by yourself to do something. But does it in a way that feels more believable because it's not treated as like a Darth Vader is your father style plot twist every time, you know? In fact, I think that's maybe why I don't mind its kind of last minute post credits kind of rug pull, is because it generally doesn't trade in like crazy big twists that change everything. It's sort of like you get this kind of incremental knowledge based on a kind of internally consistent set of rules until at the very end you find out that nothing mattered. And that's a big rug pull, but I think it's better occurring there. Like, imagine if that reveal happened in the last act of the game and was the thing the whole finale hinged on. I don't think it would work at all.
No, it would have undermined everything.
But because it happens where it happens, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's the sting at the end of the Twilight Zone. It's the question mark on the end of the end. You know what I mean? Like, and I think for that reason it worked for me. Ish. Yeah. Was there anything... What else stood out about Prey? Why? Because I feel like... So I feel for my part that I've moaned about it quite a lot. Because I feel like it was a really weird, disjointed journey with it. And I can't get away from that. Because I really liked it. But...
I had such a kind of erratic experience. Like, I was just in love with it for the first, like, 6 to 10 hours or something. And then the combat started to drag for me when I was, backtracking and getting annoyed with mimics. And a couple of little the canteen quest I hated. And there were just a couple of little bad encounters where after a loading screen, there's just a kind of boss right there, and there's just nothing, the ways I wanted to play it, I just wasn't allowed to. So that was my like slump with it. And then I started to get back into it when there was like all this crew stuff, it was like all the survivors holding out in the, cargo bay and, rescuing Michaela and Igwe and having sort of this weird like little posse of, of people. And I got a kind of second wind with it. And then, I ended up basically really, still thinking it's really good, but, just with a lot of kind of bumps along the way. And by the end of it, I was really powerful by the end of it, and I had like Psycho Shock and Concussive Blast, and I could, like, it didn't seem to be consistent, but it, like, sometimes with a Weaver, if I Psycho Shocked it and then Concussive Blast it, that would literally kill it just from full health, like in 2 things, and it was like, whoa. It's still, the combat was better at that point, but it still I never really enjoyed it that much. It was, my favorite time for the combat was really early on when everyone was terrifying and mysterious, and it was just like, hiding under a desk from a phantom or being terrified of that technopath in Fabrication.
How about you, John? What were your final kind of, because you're midway through another playthrough, right? Or
yeah, I've gone nuts on it. I played it through twice, once on normal, once on hard, and I've started another playthrough.
Wow.
Just because in that final post-credits wrap-up, Igwebot says specifically, and he killed loads of Typhon, which is great. And that made me think, what if you kill absolutely no Typhon and you murder every human you run across? Because I think a producer tweeted at some point, we put a lot of work into making sure you can play it in a very specific way that no one's going to discover for months. And I figure if you just come to as a Typhon that knows it's a Typhon and you're just killing everyone for fun and you're not harming your friends and stuff, maybe that's like a very specific
maybe what they mean is if you go into the first EVA bit and just start jetting towards Earth.
They made a whole game down there.
It takes months, but you can get down there and it's great. It's just GTA, it's great.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I think the moment I really started, it really clicked and everything came together was weirdly the first EVA section. and you just go out and you see the station as a whole, and you realise that the collection of levels and everything is a physical place, and you can just fly around it and go in anywhere you want.
Yeah.
And it felt like the realisation of something they tried in, or suggested at least in BioShock 2, where you like come out of the city and walk around through various underwater sections. And that, when they first came out or first suggested it, it felt like, oh, you're going to be able to walk over the entire station and come in anywhere you want. And then in the end, it was just like a few trudges through some preset scenery and stuff. But then in Prey, everything's just there, and it all makes physical sense, and the exterior connects up to the interior, and you can fly through and see different bits of the interior by coming in different angles and stuff. And
it's quite Dark Soulsian in that regard.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the kind of consistency of
the thing that everyone praises. Like, from this one point, you can see the place where you'll be in 12 hours and stuff, and it's a real world.
Yeah, I think that's not to be underestimated how difficult that is to do. And that internal consistency is what really sells it. I think it's the reason those small inconsistencies don't work. I think that's my frustration with Prey, because I really do like it, and for much as I've nitpicked about it, I think the reason for that is I think it's a great game. I think had it delivered on the potential of things like the Nightmare, and had they had the kind of, I think what probably would have been the critical or the self-critical sensibility to go, if we can't do every logical ending for this quest, we don't do this quest.
Yeah.
Like if without those moments, I think it would be like all-time classic good.
Yeah.
Like because the moments where it comes alive and feels really special is when you solve the problem in completely your own way. Like, just small things like grabbing Alex as he floated off unconscious and just jetting him into his survival shelter, and then having the pop-up that says, save Alex, and then instantly resolving it, because I'd already done it based on instinct and my understanding of the game's systems. The whole game should be like that. All of it should feel as organic as that. There should never be a moment where you crouch an event because you know the Nightmare can't find you there because its AI is dumb, and if you just wait 3 minutes, it will despawn. Like, that's where, for me, it drops back out of greatness, as a game.
Well, those are the points where just very small things break, ironically, the simulation and the whole kind of, I can't remember.
Facade?
Yeah, the whole facade just tumbles a little bit.
Indeed. Like, I think this is the thing, right? Like, it's so hard to get even...
Sorry, I just had the thought that like maybe the reason the Nightmare kind of sucks in its pathfinding is they just couldn't get that right in the the simulation when they're trying to like emulate what
Morgan went through.
Yeah,
She had to fight like a perfect
in
Nightmare.
real life. That's why Morgan's dead, is because the Nightmares are brilliant at hunting her. And they're like, how did they do that?
We have to nerf the Nightmares in the simulation.
He's great at graphics and rendering programming, but he can't do AI.
Or reflections. Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, it's so hard to get even halfway to where Prey gets with like respecting the player's agency and giving you freedom over a kind of meaningfully simulated area that's internally consistent with all that stuff. Like, the achievement of that is huge, particularly in what appears to be a relatively compressed development for this game. Given what it was going to be as Prey 2 originally, like, kind of nuts, the whole history of it. But yeah, I think for me, it's just a few of those big issues away from being genuinely amazing. But that said, I guess the bigger question there is whether or not you would want Prey to move more towards a horror direction to fix those problems, or more towards a kind of immersive sim do what you want direction. Because it feels like one solution to both the problems it mimics as a concept where they become annoying and to the Nightmare is to make the game more of a horror game about smaller numbers of individually more powerful enemies, right?
Yeah. I think I do want that. Like, in some ways, like, dealing with a single really powerful enemy sort of brings out the best in immersive sims sometimes. Like, well, that's probably too general, but in Prey, my favorite moments were like dealing with one thing that I was terrified of, and in some cases that was early on like one phantom, but that encouraged me to set things up and prepare and have a plan and combine as many different options as I had.
Yeah. Like, I think I would probably prefer it if it was that game. I think it would be hard to get through. Because I think there's a point where it's like, I can bypass this bullshit because I'm a flying robot that can mind control other robots into fighting for me, and therefore nothing is a threat. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it probably wouldn't work for everyone, but for me, I would have been just happy with whole load more of my experience being kind of empty. Like the times when I was backtracking and there was just nothing there at all, I was still completely in rapt attention. I was so fixated on like what I was going to get out of this backtracking. Like, I'm going here because I really need to open this guy's office because that's going to lead me to this. And I didn't need extra entertainment. I didn't need to sort of have that, fleshed out by more enemy encounters.
Well, I think that's one thing it proves as well, is that with sufficiently kind of good writing for things like emails and detailed kind of quest planning and great interfaces and that kind of amazing sense of place, backtracking isn't necessarily a chore. You don't necessarily need to add in more enemies. It's not about getting into the next combat encounter. It can be satisfying just to solve a mystery in a big place like that.
Yeah.
Like, I would play the interesting abandoned space station game where there was no mystery. Where there was no alien threat or any combat or anything like that, where there just was terminals and mysteries and clues and things.
The wholeness of the whole thing and the fact that you can go outside of it and all that had me like daydreaming about a sort of like Star Trek type game where this is your ship and you're going to go through different galaxies and encounter different stuff, and sometimes that require you to go outside to fix hull breaches or to fight off like space aliens, and other times enemies board your ship and you've got to deal with it inside, because the way you kind of get to know that place inside out is really satisfying and just feeling like it's kind of your home.
And that is the flip side to like how quickly and in some ways anticlimactic the ending felt to me, is because at that point I just mastered those environments. Like, I knew my way across them, and that's a reasonable thing.
At that point it has to end, really.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. It's been interesting with that in mind, watching some speedruns of Prey. I think the fastest I could see for like completion of the fastest I could see for the getting out of the station early ending was like 5 minutes. And the fastest I can see for the just completing the game, I think with the null wave ending, is 7.5 minutes, which is nuts. But it shows that it's only possible because of that kind of holistic simulation that the game does. Down to the fact that, because I mean, there's a lot of getting out of bounds and kind of skipping bits because it's quite easy to get out of the level in Prey. In fact, I did it by accident at one point. But there's a great little revelation in one of the videos I watched where you see that I don't think they can spawn items. So loads of key items are just in the world, but like hidden under the floor in the Arboretum. So like under the Arboretum, there's like a little space in the nothing beneath the lowest mesh in that environment, where you can find Alex's arming key, the prototype nullwave blueprint, Dahl's key for the back room of his shuttle, like loads of stuff that you wouldn't see till deep in the game. And it's really funny, like seeing people get out of bounds, dive down there, grab the nullwave thing, and they've already skipped from put on your TranStar uniform at the very beginning of the game after you get out of bed, and they skip straight to attach the nullwave device and detonate the station. It's like such an interesting kind of like, it's so cool that all of that logic is there. And actually that's another thing that proves that thing at the beginning isn't smoke and mirrors from the game's point of view, is that if you get out of bounds during that initial first day before Morgan goes to sleep again, you can just get into Talos 1 and it's just all there. And it's completely simulated and the game just continues, which is kind of great. Like, your mission objective is still put on your uniform and go to the testing center, but you're just out in the station. Closing thoughts, Tom, on Prey, the video game?
I feel like I did it really.
2 hours of it.
I mean, just now, like just really liked it, except for a slump in the middle, and doesn't measure up to Dishonored 2 for me. Their bar is extremely high, but I think probably got more out of it than Mankind Divided on balance, which is saying something, because Mankind Divided, Deus Ex is my favorite thing, and although that had a lot of narrative problems, mechanically I really liked it. But I think I just wasn't fascinated by it, whereas this, I was just fascinated for so much of that playtime.
Yeah. John?
It's genuinely going to be one of my top games of the year, I think. Already I just know that. I love the mystery of it and its weird aliens and the whole contained environment of it. I love it.
Do you think you'll get a third playthrough?
No, I think because I'm like 2 hours into that, and playing through without killing any Typhon is just incredibly frustrating way to play. All you can do is just sneak and run and glue them up, and I'll probably just go and check the wiki.
I was thinking about doing a coldly execute all the humans playthrough and see what happens. Like, but also not take any Typhon powers, like
I'm just a bad human. I'm not a Typhon.
But also, while the no one gets out of this and no one's touching the alien stuff playthrough, the kind of brutal cleansing kind of, just destroy the station, save the Earth kind of ending. But I think they would just murder you for that. So
Yeah.
I think that's one. You're right when you say that ending does make me less likely to experiment with other endings because I know it's just going to end with people saying, "Well, you didn't do this."
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that wraps up our Prey pod.
Yep.
We've done opinions about it and spoiled it thoroughly. So apologies if you somehow listened to all of this without realizing that's what it's going to be. Yeah. If you'd like to send in any, I was going to say questions. We don't need to send questions to this podcast because we're never doing this again. This is one-off. Whatever. Obviously, regular Crate and Crowbar continues as normal every week. Spin-offs like this are made possible by our Patreon backers. You can find out more about our Crate and Crowbar Patreon at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar. You can also follow the Crate and Crowbar on Twitter at Crate and Crowbar and on YouTube at /Crate and Crowbar. Logically follows one from the other. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, I am at CThurston, that's CTHURSTEN. Tom?
I'm at Pentadact, PENTADACT.
And John?
I'm at John R. JOHN_ARR.
You sounded a little bit uncertain about that for a moment.
I couldn't tell if it was a mimic or not. That doesn't make any sense.
But it's as close to a closing joke as we're going to get. So let's leap in the air and high five and freeze frame. Thanks for listening, everybody.